is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated. We are less than 1 week away from Super Bowl 59. We will break down that game in its entirety, and we're also going to break down other things in the world of football, NFL style. You are watching right now Total Football Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we welcome you to Total Football Talk, the 75th episode of such. And I am one of the co-hosts of this program. I am Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the EP of all EPs and the mad scientist as well. But I'm not doing this alone. I am joined, as always, by the other co-host of this program. You know him as Mr. Commander's Gridiron Report. You know him as Mr. Inter-House Sports Debate. You also know him as Mr. D. Willie in the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the life of the party, D. Willie, a.k.a. Drew Willingham. How are things with you, man? How are things?
It is an honor, joy, and privilege to be back here on the airwaves with my man, the EP of all the EPs, Kyle Johnson. Yes, I cannot do it as well as he does, but we have a great Monday. We are less than a week away from Super Bowl 59, Cole. I mean, to finally be at this point, to see a rematch between two teams we just saw, just a couple years ago. This is absolutely wild to see again. Mm-hmm. And can it come down to a PI call in the end zone at the end of the game again? Who knows? We're about to find out here very shortly.
Oh Lord! If it does come down to that again, I probably will have a full face palm expression for all the off season. Be like, no, not this again. But well, since there is no games to review, we will not have an opening drive. But instead, we are going to have this. So in lieu of opening drive, we're going to ask those hard-hitting, pertinent questions that are all around. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Super Bowl, but all around the NFL. For instance, the first category we're going to touch on is the Pro Bowl. Yes, I know. It's something actually took place in Orlando that looked like it was a skills competition between two sets of teams. Well, that is the Pro Bowl weekend and how it is now. But it's flag football, not with the pads. So the past three Pro Bowl games have made one thing unmistakably clear. The NFC seems to love playing flag football. Now, before the Chiefs and the Eagles get it on in New Orleans, Orlando decided to host the flag football extravaganza to end all flag football extravaganzas of the year. In a 76-63 victory over the AFC, the NFC conquered all. And they also even won all events, including a 56-50 win in Sunday's flag football game. The NFC has won all 3 years in the format, and it began 2 years ago this February. Now, my question to you, sir, is people sort of had a waning interest in the Pro Bowl. Unfortunately, it was not too long after one of our favorite players and one of your favorite Washingtonian players, Sean Taylor, laid probably one of the greatest hits in Pro Bowl history. But now it's flag football. Should we really care about the new Pro Bowl format?
Man, that hit! As soon as you said that, I was seeing the flashback in my head.
Mhm.
That was a great play by Sean Taylor. But
It was. It was.
with the Pro Bowl and what we're seeing, should we really care about the new Pro Bowl format? Absolutely not. I mean, this is the week where you finally you get to understand what it's like to not have football, or at least the NFL around.
That's a
Because
good
then
way
the
of putting it.
following week you got the Super Bowl. It kind of gives you a preview of what's to come after the following week. There's no football because there literally was no real action that you saw in this contest. There was a lot of points being scored because of all the events that were being done. But
Right.
I'm going to ask you this: when the
Hmm.
events kicked off mid last week, were you watching the sleds and all that stuff? All that stuff? I was not watching. I'm going to be honest. I was not watching it, and probably half of America wasn't watching it either. This they need to go back to having just the All Pro team
Hmm.
where you get named to like it's just like the Pro Bowl. You get
Hmm.
named to it, but you don't even play. Like it's the honor. It's just like an award,
Yeah.
like you would have, 5-time All Pro, like you would have the Pro Bowl, except for you're not participating. You get the award, and it's still an accolade that you can add to what you've achieved throughout your tenure. Because at this point, there's no point playing. You might as well be playing flag football on a beach and not
Yeah.
on an actual field, and take it back to Honolulu. But if you're gonna be doing all this outdoor activity stuff, you might as well take it off the field. If you're gonna try to make it more of like where you still get the accolade, but you should enjoy the time in itself, might as well put it on the beach, flag football on the beach, if you're really trying to make it lax, because actually having it out on the football field is a tease. It's not real football, and it's not going to sell the amount of tickets that real football would, especially the Super Bowl. So you might as well put it on a beach or in a setting where you can still attract fans, but have it be, I don't know. With the way the world is nowadays, I guess you kind of have to have some restrictions on how close the fans can be to the game, because into the players in itself, because of safety reasons, because of the way things are nowadays. But I don't know. That's just the way I would envision a celebration of what the past season would truly be, is by putting it somewhere in a different location and not necessarily having it in a stadium. That's how I would care about it.
I, to answer your question, no, I did not sit in I did not sit in front of my TV set and watched uh, relay races and skill competitions of the sort. I'm not saying they shouldn't hold it like you. I'm not saying they shouldn't hold it. But yeah, if they're going to hold it, if they're going to do, and this is something that Hollywood did before you were born. But I think you know of it. They had this Battle of the Network Stars where you had people who had shows on CBS would go against people who had shows on ABC, who would go against people who had
Yes.
shows with NBC, and it was done on either a beach in Hawaii or a beach in Southern California. And you had these wonderful celebrities, and you had great scenery as backdrop. If you sell it in that way, you might not get the hardcore guys to watch it, but you might actually get some audience just to see that, because it'll be a different type of event. And I love the Hawaii aspect because it's a vacation still, and it's an honor to be voted like it's an all pro. But uh all right, let's, as Cam Newton likes to say, let's keep it a buck. Orlando is probably the most exciting place to be if you have children and you're going to Disney World. Otherwise, screw actually being in Orlando. Uh, there's nothing really there to see, not the city, nor the area. I mean, other than Disney World, and if you're there in the first Sunday of February, you probably will be in warmer weather. Okay, or the last Saturday Sunday in January, whichever. You be in warmer weather. Whoop big whoop. You could do that in Houston and still get the same thing. And I guarantee you, and I lived in Houston, there's not much to see there. And I love H Town. So Orlando, nah. Miami, that's a different story. But even then, I was still wanting to, if I had the choice between Honolulu and Hawaii, I would still choose Hawaii. But yeah, I agree with you. It should be like an honor, and I get that you want to shy away from having the physicality of football because for some reason that doesn't really draw anymore. And you were beginning to see players say, "Well, I'm not going to risk myself to actually play a football game, a glorified football game, and I actually might get hurt at this event." Forget that. And I think they were trying to circumvent guys who were pulling out of the event altogether. Well, I don't think they're gonna have a fix for this. I think it pretty much is going to be this, or like you said, just have the honor and just go from there. Forget it. It doesn't really mean much of anything.
Because the last time it meant something was that highlight that you brought up was
Hmm.
when Sean Taylor actually he was the last person that actually took the game seriously.
Yes.
And it's been nearly 20 years since that play happened.
Right. Hmm.
So,
Oh yeah.
looking back on it, that was the death of the Pro Bowl. Was when he
I
made that
hated that.
tackle.
I hate this. I hate to say that, but it was, and that's not his fault. That's the best part. It's not his fault. He did what you're supposed to do as a football player. I got the pads on. I'm on the field. I got to take this serious. And with guys like us who's played the sport, even if it is an all-star type of game, you still go all out. And by the way, that hit was that was one of the cleanest hard hits I've ever seen. Clean,
Mm.
and the hit was technically sound to boot. I'm like, oh my gosh, he actually got in position in the right way and drove into the guy like he was going to wrap him up. I'm like, oh my gosh, that. Ooh. Mm. I'm sorry.
You know,
One of my favorite players on Washington has always been Sean Taylor, and
there
that's one of my favorite plays he did.
I like the comparison you drew up with the Battle of the Network Stars because that was
Hmm.
before my time as far as like me
Yeah.
watching it live. But
Hmm.
over the years, I have seen the clips of it on like YouTube, and there was like some
Yeah.
replays of it back in the day. I
Hmm.
remember seeing like back when like these stars were on TV, like Robin Williams. Like I think this is like
Right.
back when he was doing like Mork and Mindy and stuff like
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
That's how
Right.
he was on there. Like you had Robin Williams, you had David Letterman, you
Hmm.
had like Tom Selleck, you had
Right.
of course Charles in Charge, Scott Baio
Scott
out
Baio.
there,
Mhm.
doing his thing. All these different names out there combat, it was like relay races and like
Right.
all these different things
Hmm.
where very similar to what we're already seeing right now in
Right.
the NFL. So if
Hmm.
you're going to do that in an NFL stadium, or I like where what you were talking about, Orlando, Disney, around the kids. At the same time, you're already talking about going to Disney World when you win the Super Bowl anyway.
That's correct.
So
Hmm.
you're going to have the NFL, represented at Disney World 2 weeks in a row. I don't know. So at the same time, you could bring more to and more revenue to different places, so it's somewhere else
Hmm.
if you did it in somewhat of like a beach style setting. Which I
Right.
mean, you could do that. Florida does have beaches.
Yeah.
You could do it somewhere relatively close,
Hmm.
but that's where my mind goes to that. If you want to somehow increase the interest into the Pro Bowl itself, because right now in the flag football itself and in just the games that you've got, I think
Hmm.
they've got a decent idea and they're heading in the right direction. But
I think the
what you were
same.
doing before with the Pro Bowl in Honolulu,
Hmm.
I think if you have the games in that type of setting, it might be better to do that as a whole round thing instead of just one individual event.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think hopefully the Players Association actually get together with owners and say, yeah, well, that Hawaii thing, the game, we don't have to do the game, but you could do these events and put it over there and make it a family thing. And I like that idea. Disney World, 2 weeks in a row with NFL partnership with that. That's interesting too. And that might be an avenue they go down, but I agree. The current way has to change somehow, some way. Ooh, man. Now, before we get to the next question, let's hit the tribe. All the way from Norway, Sig Diggy, with his vintage greeting. What's good, everybody? He says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Good afternoon to you, sir. And good
Good
afternoon
afternoon,
to
sir.
one half of the Monarchs, one Mr. Darnell Playmaker Silence. He says, good morning, TFT bros. And it's a personal note to you. I hope everything goes well with you when you make your journey to New Orleans and Radio Row. I hope everything goes well with you, man. Congratulations to that honor that you have had
Thank you,
bestowed
sir.
upon you.
Yes. Nice.
Dante, Eagles fan extraordinary, says, what's up, guys? He says, look, that Sean Taylor hit, it changed the Pro Bowl for a while. And the whole game, even with the pads on, got a lot softer. Yeah, it did. It did. He also said, I think the NFL got rid of the Pro Bowl game and I think they should get rid of it and include it with the NFL honors, which normally NFL honors it used to be every Thursday before the Super Bowl. I think now it's Saturday. He says, and have the players walk across the stage to receive their jersey. I don't like that idea too bad either. I like that. That doesn't sound too bad. I like that. That's a
I thought
good one,
that was it.
Dante.
It's just Wednesday or Thursday, isn't it? The
I
NFL
thought
honors.
it's Thursday. I thought it was. I thought they moved it from Thursday to Saturday. I don't know why they did Saturday, but I
February
think
6th. So Thursday. Yeah,
Thursday. Okay,
February
so it's
6th
Thursday.
at
Okay,
9 o'clock.
so
So
it's
yeah,
okay.
it's
Thank
moved
you.
up.
Thank you for that correction. Thursday. Okay.
Thank you, the internet.
Yes. Thank you, internet.
Shout out to Google.
Shout out to you, Google. Thank you, and thank you, Tribe. We're glad that you're holding it down for us and with us as we proceed. Now, the Ohio State Buckeyes, they are, well, I won't say fresh, but close to fresh off of their historic national championship run, which culminated in the cylindrical gold pole that they hold and hoist up. And they did that in Atlanta with their 34-23 victory over Notre Dame. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because the offensive coordinator of that Ohio State team, Chip Kelly, well, he is leaving college and he's coming back to the pros. He's returning to NFL and he's joining Pete Carroll to be the offensive coordinator under the new head coach, Pete Carroll of the Raiders. Now, the 61-year-old has spent the past 7 years in college football in total. Of course, last season, Ohio State, and before then, he was the head coach of UCLA for the previous 6. Now, Kelly last coached in NFL in 2016 when the 49ers had a beautiful season of 2-14. Now, my question to you, sir, is what impact do you see Chip Kelly having on you saw that offense that the Raiders had this past year? What impact do you see him having on that anemic offense that the Raiders run?
I mean, Chip Kelly has had success with offenses in the past. I mean, you have to give him his credit. I mean, in the NCAA, he does have an 81-41 overall record. So he can coach. Does he have the head coach title? No, but he was a college football national champion in this
Right.
past year as the coordinator with Ohio State. And
Hmm.
you transcend what Jim Harbaugh did coming from Michigan over to the Chargers this year. Did they go far in the playoffs? No, but they made the playoffs. They did more than what Staley did. Keep in mind, yeah, he is a head coach over there with the Chargers, but he still had an impact within that offense.
Hmm.
And you look at what Pete Carroll, is trying to do and try to build over there with the Raiders. You realize he's like almost he's pushing 80, so he can't be doing everything all himself, even though he does have offensive minded capabilities with what he's done in the past and what he's
Hmm.
done as a coach, that being Pete Carroll. But when it comes to Chip Kelly in his time, you're basically coming in there. Him, Chip Kelly, 61. He could be the successor to Pete Carroll at some
Hmm.
point over there in Las Vegas. It could potentially happen if things go the right way. Because Pete Super Bowl champion, 73 years old, has been in the league for quite some time. But
Hmm.
Pete is mainly a defensive minded coach, bringing in
Right.
people like Dan Quinn and establishing him as a defensive coordinator, helping him get to Atlanta.
Hmm.
Eventually, we saw what happened there, but now he's in Washington doing great things coaching, and that all started under the Pete Carroll coaching tree for
That's
him.
correct.
You
Hmm.
look at other players, coaches that have had success under Pete Carroll. Chip Kelly has been waiting for a big breath of fresh air since um, his ousting from San Francisco. How things went with Philadelphia. He's been looking for a way to get really back into the NFL, but in good graces. And his best opportunity is now as an offensive coordinator with the Raiders, working under Pete Carroll, who again, I see Pete Carroll doing something very similar to what Bill Belichick's going to do with the UNC Tar Heels in college, where he's going to be there for 3 to 4, 5 at the most years. I say 3 to 4 years because they're both pushing mid 70s. They're like 73, so they're like
Right.
they're are you going to be coaching at a high level at 80 years old? No, people are
Hmm.
usually retired by now. So to take a
Yep.
job at this age, I mean, the one thing you got to say about Pete Carroll is he doesn't act like he's 73. The man moves around, does things like he's 20 years younger and has a lot of
Right.
life, a lot of spirit left in him. And he's
Hmm.
trying to have people around him that can energize him or continue to keep him energized to do the best that he can do as a coach. And Pete will be focusing mainly on the defensive side. He needs somebody that can hone the offense to where he doesn't have to worry about anything, really kind of just focus on the defense and kind of build on what Antonio Pierce was doing with that defense over there in Las Vegas with Max Crosby. You bring in somebody like Chip Kelly, who, you know, you got Tom Brady up there in the ownership part, whether he's a minority owner or not. He wants to have a good offense, and your best option to have that ability to do that would be to bring in somebody who just won a national championship as an offensive coordinator, because you're not going to get somebody like Cliff Kingsbury this offseason. He's staying in Washington. I
Hmm.
mean, there's no head coaching opportunity for Cliff to really go out there and take, for him to really capitalize on what they did in Washington this year, even though they did, go to the NFC Championship, and you could get something off of that in most cases. A lot of the best coaching opportunities were taken by the time the NFC Championship came and gone. So even if he would have wanted to interview for it, Cliff's not going anywhere, and it wasn't going to go to the Raiders and leave Washington and Jaden Daniels for unsure opportunities for the same position as offensive coordinator.
Right.
So your next best option was Chip Kelly, and if you're Chip Kelly trying to advance from what you had just done in college, your best bet after going to UCLA and having the downfall there, with what you had, you were the head coach there from 2018 to 2023. You leave there, and in 1 year, you turn your misfortunes around as the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, getting a national championship. I think it was an absolutely great choice by Chip Kelly to go and run the Raiders offense, and I think he is going to make an impact because you're going to have younger talent. This is going to be a younger team.
Hmm.
He's going to want to try to run, what he did over there in Oregon back in the day. He's going to want to do something similar with the faster paced offense that you're going to need younger players to utilize. You're not going to be able to grab Aaron Rodgers or you're not going to be able to grab an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson this offseason and have him run a Chip Kelly offense. There's no way it's going to happen. A 40-year-old quarterback, 41-year-old quarterback, Aaron Rodgers,
Hmm.
and pushing 40s, Russell Wilson. There's no way. No mother, father, and way you're going to bring either one of those in here to run a Chip Kelly offense. They are going younger.
Hmm.
They just may try to trade up and get Shador Sanders now.
I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the trend is going to be younger, and and normally, and I'll add to what you said. Normally, the Chip Kelly, anything he runs, offensive wise, it's better served when the talent pool is younger. Pete Carroll, as a head coach, normally coaches better when the talent is younger. So you have two guys who I think believe that if the median age of the team is south of 30, I think they stand a better chance of turning around what has been, let's be completely honest, a moribund franchise. I mean, we're talking about one that has not even seen a Super Bowl in what, 22 years. So yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of tempo on offense, and Chip Kelly normally likes to run a run heavy up tempo type of offense. So that definitely makes someone like Pete Carroll smile, because he likes his offenses to run a little more, because he likes the defense to really carry the day. And so I think this is a good fit. Now, here's the question that I have for the Raiders. If you do have the right fit, you do get the running back that you need to actually have this all circle around. Are you satisfied with, or will you be satisfied with the offensive line that you will have in front of them? Because that offensive line is not all that great. Uh, you just mentioned quarterback that needs to be upgraded. I mean, Aiden O'Connell, not really something you're going to go in the future with. And of course, they definitely are going to go in the future, at least starting wise, with the Gardner. So, or what you call him, Uncle Rico. So you have that issue there. Uh, Defense, you don't have as much of an issue, except I think you probably have to upgrade in certain areas and probably get more depth wise. But you have the piece to build around the Max Crosby, because there's very few on the line that you would actually rather, or very few in terms of pass run you would rather have than him. So you have that piece defensively built around. What's the offensive piece you're going to build around? And so I think that is what they need to establish, and they need to establish that as soon as possible, maybe even when the free agency time comes, which is next month. Who
And
knows?
if you're going after a free agent quarterback, your number one sell to a free agent quarterback that you're actually interested in is Brock Bowers, because of the target you have with him. Look at what that rookie did with absolutely nothing throwing at him. So
Yep.
I really, if you're whether you're a free agent or if you're Shadur Sanders coming in, if they can bring in another wide receiver and you've got Brock Bowers to go along with that, starting off in a pretty good spot. But you also need an O line to help protect you. And Aiden O'Connell
Yes.
and his weird looking mustache was not getting enough protection over there by his offensive line.
He surely was not. He sure was not. With the lack of protection, and even the the lack of composure on that line too, because they would be drawn into penalties too. Yeah, they need to have an upgrade for sure there, and I think they need to start with the upgrade there. But yeah,
No,
Bauer's a good point. That's a really good building block they could start with to build around him too.
Aiden O'Connell reminds me of Dominic Mysterio with that mustache.
Oh
Right there,
no.
Dirty Dom. Every time he dropped back, I thought it was Dirty Dom in there. He just tucked his mullet up underneath in that helmet, was ready to sling an interception. Good old Dirty Dom in the Judgment Day.
Oh Lord. No, he's missing is the
Yes,
frogs.
the Royal Rumble was this past weekend, and just
Right.
Dirty Dom getting in the Royal Rumble. I laughed. I thought it was
Oh,
funny. That was a really good
I
event. I
too.
really was really happy with that event this past weekend.
I was too. I was too. Oh my
Jay
goodness.
Uso, the Oos, yeet, got himself the Royal Rumble.
Yeet.
And he kicked off Fruity Pebbles and got the Rumble win. I was absolutely happy. As I'm drinking as I'm drinking lemonade
Oh
out of a
no.
Skittles cup.
Yeet.
Fruity Pebbles.
Thank you, Rock. Of course, for those who don't know, that was an insult more than a decade ago. Rock saying to John Cena, "You wear all these colored shirts: a bright green shirt, a bright purple shirt, bright yellow shirt. You look like a big back bowl of Fruity Pebbles." And when he said that, I was like, Pebbles or Skittles? That actually would work.
I've called him nothing else but Fruity Pebbles ever since that promo.
Oh my gosh, I love that. He was spot on with that. To the tribe again we go. Mr. McCarthy, one half of No Credentials Required. We appreciate you. Thank you, brother. Yo, I'm gonna big up your head coach very soon. So stay tuned. Dante says, look, this Chip Kelly partnership with Pete Carroll, it's very interesting, but with Chip, there's a lot of egos in the building just with him alone. Uh yeah, and actually just with the Raiders, there's a lot of egos alone. You got Brady, who's a minority owner of the Raiders, Tom Brady, that is. Pete Carroll, who yeah, he does have an ego, but he's giving enough to where it doesn't really overshadow things. It says, look, Kelly's last famous words was, well, what can go wrong? Good point. Good point there. Ike Dustin.
I
It's good to see him, my man. He says, hi, guys, what's up? He says, look, I don't like Chip in Las Vegas, and I don't like him there because he's not loyal.
is he not loyal? Was he not loyal to the team or his quarterback or what? That's my question.
Mm, the the only place where I could say that actually might be. I'm not saying you're wrong, Ike, but the place I could definitely highlight where that could possibly be the end of his stint with the Eagles when he was a head coach. I could see how you could get that, but yeah, definitely elaborate further though. Definitely
Yeah.
elaborate further. Dante says, "Look, what does this mean for the AFC West? You got Jim, you got Andy, you got Son, and now you have Pete. How long before this division becomes SEC football?" That's a good question.
Touche. Touche, my man.
That's a good
Well,
question.
yes. Very, very good question. We'll have to revisit that during this upcoming season.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, Dante, I think has an answer for us. He says, "Yeah, he was
Yes.
the jerk at UCLA, and they hate him there." Well, he was a jerk at Philly, and
Kind of a
he
jerk everywhere except for Ohio State. They love him, but he wasn't there
yeah,
long enough.
right,
He was there
yeah,
for a
they loved
year.
Ohio. They love him Ohio State still, but yeah, he was a jerk in Philly. He didn't stay in San Francisco long enough, and yeah, he was rather jerky in UCLA, and I don't think we knew him well enough in Oregon. I think he was so far away from
Stop
us.
it.
We just saw how he was, how successful he was with Oregon. Oh, he says I still hate it. Why? Why do you still hate Chip? He got you division championships with Shady. How could you hate him, Dante?
Dante. He's got
No
a good point
problem,
though.
playmaker. No. His point does have merit. Uh, Playmaker, thank you, my brother. I hope everything goes well with you. And yeah, tomorrow enjoy it in New Orleans. They say bon ton roulette, as they say down there. Now, one interesting development, we were talking about flag football and Pro Bowl. Uh, Flag football is now going to be a thing for the Olympics, starting when it gets to LA 3 years from now. And one person is actually going to be interested in joining that group. Tampa Bay Bucks wide receiver Mike Evans. He said this past Saturday at the Pro Bowl that he is considering playing for Team USA for flag football come 2028. The International Olympic Committee, or IOC, they announced back in October of 2 years back that men's and women's flag football will debut for the Los Angeles Games July of that year, 2028. The six-time Pro Bowler and franchise's all-time leading scorer is interested, having gotten a little taste of it, of course, with the Pro Bowl flag football format in the last 2 years. He said, let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. He actually said, quote, this is good practice for me in the Olympics. Most likely, I'll be retired by 2028. How many years is that? 3? I don't know. But if I'm retired, I would definitely like to play in the Olympics. Close quote. Now, yes, he would be turning 35 the month after the Olympics would be there in LA. So, my question is, will more NFL players volunteer to be on the U.S. Olympic flag football team come 2028?
Well, considering that they are considering players from the NFL, CFL, and UFL for the 2028 flag football teams, I can see that being a possibility. I'm not sure what the dynamic would be as far as like pay and like how that goes, and
Hmm.
and how, because the players don't, or the athletes don't pay for like their housing, like the hotel and the food. Like it's got to come from somewhere. And I don't know. And well, I'm sure that it is a fraction of what they would get paid for their services during a season in the NFL. It's nothing comparable, and I don't think it's
No.
really like negotiable. Like it's non-negotiable.
Mhm.
You either take it or leave it.
Right.
So you basically, it's like what you said in your question. You would be have to volunteer in order.
Hmm.
Will more NFL players volunteer because literally, whatever they make, you might as well just donate it because they would get they would get more of a return on their taxes or more help with their
Right.
taxes if you just donate it.
Hmm.
I think for legacy terms, I can see it possible. I think the question is there an age limit to if you can participate in flag football? And if being a part owner or minority owner has any type of effect, and if you can participate in
Mm.
something like this, because this is not an NFL regulated game. This really, honestly, except for allowing the NFL players to play, this has nothing to do with the NFL. So if you can still sling the rock like you show in your Instagram videos, yes, I'm talking to you, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II.
Oh
If
Lord.
you can still sling the rock, you need to come play in the 2028
Oh
NFL
Lord.
Olympics. By that point,
Who knows?
Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II would be in his 50s.
Junior, Junior.
And
Oh, good
and
Lord.
I have not had a reason to say his name in this manner in this time. By this point, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II would be 51
Oh my
years of
goodness.
age in the
Whew.
2028 Olympics.
Lord, these
Well,
allergies. I'm telling
actually, he
you.
would be 50, about to turn 51. Can
Yeah,
you
because his
imagine
birthday's
a
in August too.
50? Can you imagine
Mm.
a 50-year-old Tom Brady
Mm.
slinging the rock for Team USA in flag football, winning a gold medal, and then having 7 NFL Super Bowl championship titles
Mm. Mm.
and a gold medal as a quarterback? I
Mm.
could.
Mm.
That's who I think that they should seek. Mike Evans is the wide receiver.
Mm.
Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II as the
Junior, Junior.
USA's
Oh my
quarterback.
gosh, these allergies. I'm sorry. Oh. Whew.
But Tom
Okay.
Brady comes out of retirement to play quarterback one last time. You get your wish and you get a gold medal.
Well, it's funny. Of course, Tom Brady is now the glorified number one color guy for Fox, which he's done a good job, but I hate it because they actually had a really good one in Greg Olson, and I think they've done him dirty. I digress. In the NFC Championship game, the pregame of it, he was tossing the rock with Gronkowski, and he actually looked pretty good. And considering he wouldn't have to take hits, and he doesn't really run on that much, you might not be off. He actually might be able to suit up and probably play flat football. Dante does raise a good point, at least with the NFL players that are active. He says, my problem is soft tissue injuries like, ACL tears, MCL tears, etc. You remember the NBA with street ball, let's be clear. We get a lot of injuries at the combine, which is true. And there are contracts that some teams I think do force players on. Actually, Brady was part of that, where they said the activities you do away from the gridiron, either limit them or don't do them at all, because he would like to bungee jump and stuff like that. And Mr. Hoodie didn't like that all that much. Dante says, look, there would be a lot of ticked off fans. You start your QB or running back or wide receiver or cornerback, and he gets lost for the season. The media will never let them live it down. Yeah, I get that,
That's why I
and there
say
are some
retired
fans that
players.
will. Yeah, I get that, and I could see some unreasonable fans be that way, but I can also see the other side of it too, where it's like, yeah, you're competing for the honor of the country. Although, yes, the I think the biggest problem, of course, is you got the Olympics that are coming in right around the time that you have teams ratchet up the beginning, the physical part of the beginning of whatever season they're going to undergo, because, well, you have the training camp era, which normally takes place between like July 18th to the July 21st, and it goes all the way until about the second week of August, and then you have the preseason games start up. So I can understand that. I can understand that aspect, which I do. I think on your point, to your point, sir, I think you'll have to go the route of retired players or just barely retired, or they may be out the door, but they still are in the game, and they don't really, and their physicality is not really predicated on the success of whatever team they're on. I think it would have to be that.
What about like back in the day? You had college players that were doing it, right?
And
Like
it's funny you
back in
said
the
that.
back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, were you with the freshmen in college? But I
Mm-hmm.
was gonna say I wasn't gonna limit it to freshmen in college, but I do like where your mindset is, Dante, with that. But I'm thinking like college baseball back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
You had your greats like. Well, they're not. I guess they're kind of not really greats anymore because they use steroids. But Mark McGuire and Randy Johnson and those, Randy Johnson wasn't on steroids, but Mark McGuire,
Mm-hmm.
and Randy Johnson, they were on like Team USA back in the 80s. Helping them get gold medals as college athletes, college baseball players. Why not college football players go out there and play for it? I think the main issue with actual contracted or individuals who are competing for an actual team or organization, whether it's college or professional at this point, you can have non-contact injuries. Like even Deshaun Watson's injury, the latest one was non-contact. The one where he was actually in the game. He just dropped back and his leg goes out. So
Yeah.
looking at that for what it is, we've had several non-contact injuries in the past because your body is in repetition, all those dropbacks and everything. It just at some point, depending on how we're all, everybody's, get the same anatomy, male, female, or whatever. But as far as the wear and tear affects you differently depending on your genes and your makeup and your genetics. I mean, it's just how it is. Like certain things are predetermined before we even put the laces together for our cleats. I mean, it's just how it is. But the hits add up. So I think it would be best to go after like retired athletes, and ones you can go after ones not necessarily 50 years old like Tom Brady, but he could set the record for the oldest uh, football player to be, part of the flag football team in the NFL.
I can
Just
see
like
what
you
you're
had
talking about.
Satchel Paige coming out in his 50s, throwing,
Mm-hmm.
hurling the ball out there. I think that was in the 60s when Satchel Paige did that. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember. It was either the 50s or the 60s. It was something like that when he did that. But he came out of retirement, was already a Hall of Famer, and played for a season. So Tom Brady could be a Hall of Famer. Would he wouldn't? Well, would he be a Hall of Famer at that point? It'd be right around the time he'd be
He
getting
could
elected to
he
Hall of
could
Fame.
he could be, yeah, he could have been elected. I mean, he probably would be elected between now and then.
Yeah, it would either be that year or the year
Year
before when
before.
he would be
Mm-hmm.
elected. But he could be a Hall of Famer. I think it's a long shot that it happens. But the fact that he's still throwing the ball out there, you're not scrambling around and running around, and you have time. Tom Brady could do it. I think he could, but at the same time, you got to look at it for what it is. And whether it's freshman in college, you have to get the caliber of the team better than what we saw in this past Olympics because the other countries had it down pat. Like they had their players right. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what lot they found those players at, just hanging out, having a few 40s, smoking a few Newports, whatever it was. That's what it seemed like when you were watching this team on TV, Cole. I was like, what court did they find them at? Hanging out with Jacob Fatu back in the day, drinking 40s and smoking Newports when he was part of MLW. Okay? That's what I felt like we were watching during the 2024 Olympics, Cole Johnson.
Not
That's
MLW era Jacob Fatu. That's hilarious.
that's that's how I feel. But I feel like NFL. To answer your question fully, I
Mhm.
think it's going to be more so NFL former players because there's some out there. You look at like was it like Nate Robinson with basketball was venturing into different like sporting activities
Yeah,
once
yeah,
he got
he,
out
yeah,
of
he,
the
yeah,
game.
he went into boxing. Yeah. Hmm.
So this isn't quite that, but it's a healthier way of playing football. But at the same time, it's like sometimes when people retire from a profession, you can go back and work part time or do certain facets of the job that you
Hmm.
used to do and get a fraction of the pay, but it keeps you busy.
Hmm.
And that's what you could think of this as when it comes to this profession. But there's a
Hmm.
lot of people out there that hang the cleats up for the last time and they don't want to put them back on for a variety of reasons, whether it's contact or not. The most they'll get into it would be announcing like play by play or coaching, but they don't ever
Hmm.
put the cleats back on. This isn't like the big three, for basketball, but at the same time, it has a lot more clout because you can get a gold medal. So I think to answer your question fully, again, it's going to be more so NFL former players and not really NFL players because, like you were talking about with Mike Evans, he'll more than likely be retired by them, and he wouldn't be violating any contractual obligations within the organization that he plays for. So that would be the concern with actual NFL talent going out there. That's why I think it's more so former players, and you've got to go after recently, within the past 5 years, retired players who were still in shape. The only ones I would say that are the wild card in that would be either the two following: one, Tom Brady at quarterback, and two, Terrell Owens at wide receiver. Both of them in their 50s at that point could still be the top players for that NFL flag football team.
Well, I mean, you still have Tail running what 4.540 still, and he's
Yes.
51. So yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the dude could, yeah, dude could still go, and that speed would be welcomed. And I mean, he keeps in tremendous shape, so he'd be 54 by the time this event will take place. I could see him actually wanting to do this. That I think you're onto something there. I think events for that would be good for him, or like a Donovan McNabb, or who's another recently retired person that would work. It would
Donovan
work.
McNabb been out of it way too long. No,
Well,
like
true,
he
but I
hasn't
mean,
played.
all he
He
has to
hasn't
do
played in
is
like
throw.
15 years almost.
But
Like
yeah, but all he has to do is throw. Uh,
no, I'll disagree with that one. I love you, but I disagree with that one. Like To, Tom Brady. There's really not a lot of like ones that are out the game longer than 5 years that are still in shape enough to do it. Maybe
mo-
Gronk could, but he's got to put the bong down long enough to want to do it.
more than likely, more I would say more than likely would be probably Travis Kelsey, because I think he will be retired by then.
Oh yeah, yeah, he would be a much. Oh yeah, and Ryan McCarthy has a good selection there with
Oh,
Megatron.
Megatron. Yeah, yeah, not bad. Yeah, him, Adrian Peterson. No, I mean it would be people like that. But yeah,
But
it'd be
flag football's
interesting.
not really like a rushing game. It's more like a drop back and air
Yeah,
it
yeah,
on
you're
out.
right. And Peterson's strong suit wasn't with his hands. Yeah, good point.
You need a wide receiver and you need mainly wide receivers and tight ends. You know,
Yeah,
because it's yeah you might be able to have you might be able to get Jason Kelsey in there who drops enough pounds in there to hike the ball up to
I get.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And do there's a little bit of blocking
Mm-hmm.
involved, but it's nothing in comparison to what full contact football
Oh
is
no,
like.
not even close as stressful. or
Dante has a good
strenuous?
point. I don't know what type of shape he's in. It's been a while, but Devin
Devin
Hester would be the only
Hester.
other one out
Hmm.
that's like around from McNabb's era that I would consider he might
Mm-hmm.
still have the speed. But I like former NFL players playing
Yeah,
in this type of atmosphere because
that's fresh out of the plane. Yeah, I get that.
within 5 years, and of course, I mean, you can be out the game for a year and put on. Look at what Jamarcus Russell did. He was putting on the weight while still playing. You can go
That's
out of
true.
shape in 18 months, 12 to 18 months, hell, 6 months. You just let yourself go and lay around, eat Cheetos all day and play video games, Call of Duty yourself, but at least he's probably playing video games while he's walking on the treadmill. I got to give Call of Duty credit. Okay, he hasn't put on a single, like, obese pound. So he might be playing that Call of Duty, but he's actually on the treadmill or doing squats while he's playing Call of Duty. I can't get upset with him.
And then there's one of your all time favorites, Daryl Green. He said, look, he's 64, or he would probably be 67 by then. He says, and still could probably smoke some of these fools currently playing, which
He,
is true.
I would not doubt that either. But it's like he's been out of it so long. He's tired. He's tired. He's tired. Like him, Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders. He's tired. All right. So look at that for what it is. I just he's not in shape
You
like
okay? Oh
you know.
Lord, he had
You know what? You know what? This might be a far fetched as we're having fun on this Monday. What if
You okay?
wanted to fulfill his
Oh,
football dream and play for another Olympic team? Could you imagine
you okay?
playing football for Team USA?
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no. What?
That's all we need. That would be all we would need. Let me see. He's 40 now. A 43-year-old LeBron James playing flag football, going for his fourth gold medal. That's all we would need. Lord.
Hey, I'm just saying it wouldn't be a
Surprise, motherfucker.
to me if it
No,
happened.
no, but it would make me vomit because the talk after that would be, look at that. See, yo can't do this. He get basketball gold medals. He get football gold medals. Lord have mercy.
Stop it. Get some help.
At least I found a creative way to get
You okay?
back into a football topic.
Yeah, LeBron James playing football of any sort. Let me think about that. Yeah, that's about it.
We gotta pause that.
But when it comes to the comedic value of what just transpired, though,
You like that? You like that?
and you know you do.
Duck. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I could play this.
Nice. Nice. I love it.
He says, Ryan says, look, A, wrong show. And B, it's Monday. With the LOL.
It makes it better.
Dante has other suggestions. Like you got Beckham. Maybe not him. And not because I dislike him, but because he has knee issues.
He even said LeBron because
Vic, heck, throw in KD. Lord have mercy. I'd rather see.
Vic's gonna be coach. He's gonna be too wrapped up in that, and I'd rather
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
rather him
yeah,
focus
Vic
on
gonna
that
be
next
coaching.
phase of his career. If he's,
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he's still coaching and elevating at that time, then yeah. But if it's like 2027, if it's like 2 years from now, and or the beginning of yeah, because
He'll
you
be
kind of
knee
have to
deep
start
in.
training at least a year out. So
Yeah.
I would say if it's 2027, he's out of coaching, which I don't see Vic being out of coaching by then, and maybe.
I don't either.
But I think he needs to focus on that next phase of his football
Yeah.
career.
Norfolk State. Yeah, I think that's where he has to focus, and I think he will. I think he will. Yeah, I believe so.
But it's a shame this didn't come out sooner. Had this come out like 10 years ago,
Oh, he would
we
have
could have
been.
seen we could have
Yeah.
had some great highlights in the past 2 to 3 Olympics, or more so in 2024 and 2016, because we already know what happened with 2020. But 2016, if we would have had this there, and Vic was just getting out of the game, because he got, I think it was 2014 when he was last with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that would have been perfect timing. Had Vic just gotten out in 2014, they're like, hey, they're bringing the flag football to the Olympics 2016, and he was a part of that. That would have been pretty cool to see a Michael Vick at that time, because he was not in his prime for NFL football, but man, he would have
Right.
been in his prime for flag football at that point. I believe that he would have done some great things in that contest.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The athleticism that I still think he has, and that arm. Oh yeah. No question. No question about that.
Oh,
Well,
perfect.
it's
Tua.
yeah, Tua.
You can't
Yeah,
get concussed in flag
ain't got to worry
football.
about sliding. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about sliding. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, it's good to think about these things. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's time. Breaking news.
this just into the total football talk news desk. Defensive end Miles Garrett of the Browns, the reigning defensive player of the year, he has requested a trade from the Browns. And he announced on a statement earlier this morning, quote, while I've loved calling this city home, Cleveland, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It always has been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. Close quote. My question is just simple. Your thoughts on Garrett wanting out of Cleveland?
It's about time. It has literally been. This should have come the day they made the move for Deshaun Watson, because you know, like you like to grab the towel and do the stuff. We already know the bit. We already know the bit. From that moment that bit surfaced on the internet, Miles Garrett should have said, "We've got people out here doing acting jobs on our quarterback for him grabbing towels and exposing himself. Yes, we need to get myself out of here and away from this situation." That is exactly what should have happened in that moment. But here you are. You got
Oh my
exposed to
gosh.
him a little bit more. An injury here, an injury there, some inconsistencies to the left, some inconsistencies to the right. Absolutely nothing in positiveness in the middle. Miles Garrett was carrying this team's positivity over the past few years when they have had their good moments, because their offense, for what they invested into it and the talent that they brought in here, was absolutely dumpster pelican worthy, absolutely terrible. And the names that they brought in here, they should have gotten a lot better dividends out of it, especially when you have the people and the talent on defense like you had, and it was spearheaded by Miles Garrett. So, looking at it for what it is, it's a shame when you had talent over there. You can even go back to, like, when this team had like Trent Richardson on offense and other players when they were in their prime before the injuries started to add up. And Miles Garrett wants to get the expletive out of there before that happens to him. Because once you finally get out of Cleveland, they got the best out of you with no positive dividends for the team as a result. There was no playoff run, there's no division crown, there's no AFC championship appearance or anything like that, like teams who had a 33-year drought like the Commanders did this past year, ending that drought by getting to the NFC championship. And you look at teams like Cleveland, who haven't even been to the AFC Championship since they left the NFL and came back. So, teams like this, if you're Miles Garrett and you've spent 8 years, your entirety of your 20s, playing professional football for a franchise like the Cleveland Browns, and you're absolutely just spinning your tires and you're going nowhere. You got to make a move, and you got to make it now. And that's what he did, and he requested a trade. And unless some serious moves, a serious overall happens, like what happened in Washington this past year, there's no way he comes back this upcoming year, and I don't blame him. He needs a new start, and he needs to go to a team that's an actual contender, so he can finish out the remaining years he has left in the NFL in a positive note and get a Super Bowl championship, because someone of his caliber deserves that in his list of accolades.
I really cannot say any of that any better. I agree with you 100%. And yeah, I think he needs to get out of town before the Browns utilize every single drop of his talent. Dante says, "Look, Will," and when he says "Will," he's talking Eagles. He says, "We'll get him if he wants to be a champion. We have trade assets. Like you need another defensive piece on that still the defensive
Come on,
side of the
Dante.
field."
It's like when we were a little kid and they told you no more cookies. And you put your hand in the jar anyway, and you got another one. Well, we're smacking your hand right now because you need to share the wealth, my man. And he needs to come on over to the Commie Hogskins.
I mean, come on. You got Smith, you got Carter, you got Dean. Where are you going to place him?
Yeah, share the wealth, my brother. Let him come on over to Washington. Because you know what? They need help. They need help on defense. They just gave up 55 points to your team. Let's make it a little bit more competitive over there in the NFC East.
He would fit there because that's a need. I'll admit there. Washington, there's a need for that, for him. No question. He says, "Look, it sucks. Great players getting wasted at horrible organizations." Yeah, it is. He also says, "Look, Philadelphia sports media was very confident the Eagles can grab him. We could trade players as well." Well, we know Howie Rosen is very good and very astute with the draft and getting the right free agent pickups. We understand it. You stole what I was about to say, Ryan. He says, "Look, Howie Rosen will find a way to make that magic work. I bet." And I would not be surprised if he's an Eagle.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
I was going to say it would suck for the league if he is. And it would definitely suck for my partner and my brother, because he wouldn't want to see that type of talent face down Jaden Daniels 2 times a year. I'm with you on that.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Story is this. I need backup pie.
Wait, before you go there, if Gerald wakes up from his GM malaise, he may end up in Dallas. Never know. But I'm sorry, continue.
No, I didn't click Vicolav's button because he's going to Dallas. Expletive, no.
Oh, I know.
Expletive, no. I just needed help from somebody else in the NFC East to talk some sense into Dante, to let him know, take your hand out the cookie jar and share the wealth. Let us have a cookie. All right. Let us eat over here a little bit too, because we need the help over there on defense. And we'll give you some more cookies later, but right now, you've had enough. It's time to play your game this Sunday and see if the diet paid off.
No, I know you weren't saying Vicola because you're saying he's going to Cowboys. I'm just saying if Gerald wakes up, he might end up being there. You never know. I don't think so, because I think Gerald's happy with who he has. Dummy. But Dante says, "Look, we win the Super Bowl this coming Sunday, and then we get him. Of course, you got Howie Roseman, the greatest GM of all time. Well, he will be right up. Well, he definitely is right up there with the greatest GM of this era, and I don't think there's any dispute or debate about that. Literally." Ryan says, "Look, my biggest fear is that he winds up with the Bills, and the Bills actually need someone like him. That's even the scarier part."
Yeah, because Von Miller could be retiring this offseason, because he was supposed to retire 2 years ago, but he got hurt last year, and he came back this year because this year's Bills team
Was
It was
supposed to
supposed to be
go to
good
Super
enough to
Bowl.
go to the Super Bowl and make a
Mhm.
run, but it's not happening. So
No.
unless Von Miller toughs it out for one more year, but with Miles Garrett on that defense to work with him, woo! Because
Ooh,
Von Miller did pretty
gosh.
good this year too.
Yeah, he did do
But at the
good.
same time, regardless if he comes back or not, they need help. I think that I know it's a fear for you, Mr. McCoffey, but at the same time, if he doesn't come over to commies, I feel there's a good opportunity he goes to Buffalo. Now that you say that,
Hmm.
Cole, there he is.
Yeah,
He's back.
yeah, yeah. I'm back. Uh, but
You
yeah,
froze
I. But yeah, that's the thing. There's a need with him with the Bills, so I could see that. Dante says, "Look, don't blame Howie. Teams hiring bad GMs. I know. I don't blame Howie. He says, look,
How he calls, don't
Howie
answer.
calls, don't answer.
No,
Hold on,
it's
hold on, hold on,
he's
hold
not
on.
he's not as bad as when Belichick would call. Because if Belichick would call you, you knew if he was trying to trade you somebody, that guy was damaged goods. Remember Deion Branch?
So I guess you're saying if he has an eagle, if he calls you, don't answer. But yeah, I feel bad for them if that's the case. Oh my gosh. I did not think that I was going to have this entertaining end of the Grand Scoop, but I actually like this. That's kind of good. But Miles, yeah, I hope you do find your way into a contender, man, because you've already proven that you're one of the greatest defenders in the game today. Now all that's missing is a ring, and hopefully you find it. And well, if it's up to Dante, you'll be clad in green and singing "Fly Eagles Fly" in no time. Yeah, boy. Where are my dogs at? It is time to award the grand champ for this week. And for Drew's, I will cede the floor to him.
It is time that I award my grand champ. Yes, indeed, and I will give it to Pistol Pete Carroll, the newly hired Las Vegas Raiders head coach. And my reasoning behind it is he's not looking to retread with quarterback Russell Wilson in recent interview times. Good old Pistol Pete said that he is not looking to have a rekindling of any sorts with good old Russell Wilson. So, because of that, because he was adamant in his decision that he's not looking to bring back some old quarterback because he is not going to be running the offense. It's good old Chip Kelly that's going to be running the offense. Anyway, someone named Chip doesn't want to have an old quarterback. So, good old Saint Chip working with Pistol Pete Carroll because they don't want the old quarterback and they want to go with a new. I'm going with Pistol Pete as my selection for the Grand Champ of the Week. And I will be having other picks like this during the offseason when we don't have football over the next month. I will be selecting selections like this. When you make a good decision, saying things like this, I have to go with good old Pistol Pete.
Not arguing, angry with that. Not arguing that at all. And that's a good pick, though.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
and I think, I'm a fan of Antonio Pierce. I hate the fact that he got done dirty with how the team just wasn't building properly with them there. And yeah, could Antonio learn a couple of things about being a head coach? Sure, but I'm not going to say, well, it's totally his fault that team continued to circle the drain the way it was before he actually became an interim head coach and then did a decent job at the end of 2023 and then got the job and then 1 year later he's out the door. Uh, that team is bad. And when I mean bad, I mean not just the product on the field either. Um, the executive room needs an it needs an upheaval and a makeover too. But we know Bowl Cut is not going to do that. But good
Did you know that
choice. Oh, go ahead.
did you know that? And the reason why I bring that up too is Chip could have been hired as the offensive coordinator for the Raiders last year, and
That's right.
actually was seeking interest for it, but AP blocked it. And looking at what happened last year with the lack of success throughout the first half of the year, he gets dismissed. They bring in Chip out of spite.
Hmm. You might have a point there. But yeah, I totally forgot that Chip was looking for a job before he landed Ohio State and was actually in the NFL. Forgot about that. Good recall, bro. Now, for my champ of the week, I'm also going to pick a newly minted head coach, and Mr. McCarthy. I think you or Mr. McCarthy. I think you're going to enjoy this. This is probably one of the better decisions that Woody Johnson and the brain trust of the Jets have made. Aaron Glenn, former player of the Jets. The Jets actually drafted him in 1996, I think. Either 95, 96. I think it was 96. And of course, he had a really good career with the Jets and played on a couple other teams, the Texans being one of them before he retired. And he went on to be a defensive backs coach for a few teams and then ended up being the defensive coordinator for the Lions for the last couple of years. And now he has the head coaching reins in New York with the Jets. I liked the feeling of I have an adult in the room with the head coach. I have someone where I know I get the feeling that this guy is going to shape everybody up that either plays for him, coaches for him, or helps him build the team. Because I think the Jets have been lacking that type of focus ever since the tuna was there. I even will bypass the two lucky years that Rex Ryan and of all quarterbacks, Mark Sanchez brought the Jets to back-to-back AFC Championship game appearances because it was like to me it was like the boardroom was like, all right, let's throw the dart on the board and wherever it sticks, we're going to land. All right, we're going to draft him, Doop, Sanchez. Okay, we're going to have this guy coach him and Doop, Rex Ryan. Oh, foot guy. Yeah, okay, got it. Uh, it felt like a crapshoot then. I have not felt solid. I have not felt a solid feel that okay, I think this team could actually go a direction since the guy that you see here was coached by the guy that I just mentioned in Bill Parcells. I think that was the last time the Jets really had that type of grounding. And you have Glenn who's going to come back and bring that grounding again. And I also love the answer when he was asked about Aaron Rodgers. It's like, look, I reached out to him. Uh, I knew that was going to happen. So I reached out to him and we're going to get that situation fixed as soon as possible because we have a direction to head. I was like, that's what I'm talking about, Aaron. Yes. And I'm saying this, I'm not a fan of the Jets, but I'm a fan of this man. And why am I a fan of this man? Well, if we went to high school at the same time, he would have graduated 1 year before me. So he's a guy that's around my age. He's like 10 months older than I am. He comes from the same area. Although I grew up in Southwest Houston, he grew up in Humble. So there's a old hometown connection with Aaron that I have, and I saw him run a defensive meeting. He's a no nonsense guy, but he cares about his guys, and I also think you needed that as well, and you have that in one Mr. Aaron Glenn. Uh, Hopefully, it reflects on the field, but being the competitor that he is and the coach that we have seen as of late, I think you will not have that problem.
Definitely well said with Aaron Glenn because the Jets needed an adult in the room, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, they tried, but there was just certain miscues that was going on with the previous management.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I just hope that the ownership doesn't interfere too much with
That's the
what's going
only
on.
that's the only hope I have. I hope that ownership decides to act like Diddy, no Diddy, when he said in Bad Boy for Life, "Don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks." Well, and I'm saying this to Ryan. I hope that Woody takes the tact of, look, don't worry if I coach the team, I write checks. Hopefully Woody does that. I'm with you on that. Oh, Dante, in the green room when Drew and I were talking about this, he says my grandchild is Miles Garrett standing up, and he sat with it with your chest. I want out. Drew actually said if this news came earlier, that was going to be his grand champ, and we both 100% endorse what Miles Garrett did. We endorse it 100% because the Browns organization, they have no clue what they're doing, and they are wasting this guy's talent, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this guy can have games where he has 2 sacks, and I've seen this 3 different times this past year. This guy can have 2 sacks. He can have 3 quarterback hurries, 3 quarterback hits, and a couple tackles for losses. Have a stellar game, and the Browns get blown out by double digits. Yeah, it's time for him to go. It's time for him to move, and it's time for him to be with somebody that will actually appreciate his talent and have the talent around him, not just overall, but just on the defensive side of the ball. Because I don't think he's
Yeah.
had that in years either.
I mean, you'd have games where like your defense only gave up 13 points, but they scored 3 because their offense couldn't put up any.
Horrible.
So we're continuously patting Miles Garrett and company on the back for
Mhm.
their defensive play, but you have nothing to show for it because all 3 facets aren't working cohesively.
Mm. Oh,
So
to your point, uh, not this year, but not this past year, but last year when Cleveland played in Pittsburgh, um, Cleveland scored 22 points. The the defense held the Steelers to 12. They still lost that game because the Steelers defense scored 2 touchdowns. It's just that type of stuff that I think Miles Garrett needs to be away from, and I'm glad he is saying, "Okay, I've had enough." So Dante, I think I can speak for Drew when I say we're on board with that too, and we will. I think we will both give an honorary tip to the cap and a grand champ to him because he needs to say up yours to the Browns front office because they are treating him dirty. Oh my gosh. Total football talk. All right, here is a special 2-minute drill because we only have one game to focus on. But we're going to talk extensively about that one game. It is Super Bowl 59. It is combatants that have been in this spot before. In fact, the last time they played was 2 years ago, as my partner and brother mentioned earlier in this in this episode. 38-35, the Chiefs, on the strength of a pass interference call in the end zone with under 2 minutes left and a field goal by Harrison Butker, gave them the victory over the Eagles, and now the Eagles are looking for revenge. I know this not because of what I've heard from Dante, but what I heard from a fellow Eagles fan that that actually playmaker as well. Drew and I know our brother Cool McCain. He feels as though vengeance is theirs, and hopefully he get it. But yes, this game will be in New Orleans. Kickoff is at 6:30 p.m. Fox will carry this game. I just wish it was Greg Olson that was the color instead of Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Kevin Burkhardt is an awesome play-by-play guy. I think he deserves better. Not saying Brady's bad, but Olson's better, and Burkhardt deserves it. But okay, off the soapbox. I will start with this question before we even get into the festivities of on the field activities. Now, of course, we know on New Year's Day there was a terrorist attack basically in the French Quarter. For those that don't know, there was a guy who decided to act fast and furious in a crowd of people, and many, I think it was like they said officially it's like 12 people that died, and there were scores of others, dozens of others that were injured. And so it was so bad that the Sugar Bowl was delayed a day because they were playing around. They were actually going to play it that night. They said, no, we'll hold off. We'll see if the security measures are good. And they went forward and held the contest the next day. Now, my question to you is, of course, this city, I think, is hosting their 10th Super Bowl. So this is not something which is unusual for them. They know how to protect themselves. They know how to show good time, and they have many things that a person who enjoys football and wants to enjoy everything else can actually savor. Do you believe security is ready in lieu of that terror attack I talked about last month in New Orleans?
Well, that's probably one of the best questions for this entire week, and that you started this off with. And that's a really hard question to for someone to sit here and say yes or no.
Yeah,
like
I agree with that. I agree with
because neither one of us are there right now. Okay, and neither one of us. I wouldn't say that in the aspect of going there to attend it. I'm saying that is part of, we weren't there to help prepare for this. Okay, we weren't part of. We're not a resident of the area. We weren't there as part of the team that found the original from a little while ago, like the stuff for the bombings and stuff, like all that stuff. We weren't part of that. So it's really, I'm not trying to devil's advocate this or anything, or really dance too much around the topic, but I want to at least lead with that, to where, like, regardless of what I say, I don't think it holds as much true merit as if somebody who is in that position to be able to be asked that question, because that is a question that we should definitely be asking. Or someone like a Playmaker, you get that opportunity to ask that question this week. Find a way to ask that question, because that's a really good question to ask. Yeah. I want to say this in the most positive aspects of all. I want to say this without anybody getting upset. I'm going to say no. And my reason is this: how do we have security properly available for anything nowadays? There's a shortage everywhere in law enforcement, security, pilots, like aviation. No matter what field you're looking at, the best of fields for protection or transportation, the best of the best aren't there. Okay, so unless they brought in resources from other states, the government, which for the Super Bowl, yes, they have a lot of strings they can pull. I can't sit here confidently and say that I feel like they have. So I'm going to say no. And I don't want to say this to scare anybody to where they don't want to go. I just want to say this to as far as to answer it in a way that I don't think you can fully prepare in an atmosphere like in Louisiana, in New Orleans, at this event. You get to think about the stuff that goes on during Mardi Gras. They got stuff going on all the time. Have we seen worse in the past? Of course. It has things cleaned up in certain areas, yes, due to everybody being aware that there's cameras and technology. Those crazy individuals out there that do cause the issues, they have to put a lot more thought behind it and get a lot more creative, but it doesn't mean that those negative outcomes aren't still happening.
Right.
So I think you still need to be concerned and still be very cautious when you're out and about at these events, especially in somewhere like this location, geographically known to have issues at certain events in that area. Be concerned, but I think you'll still have a good time. Mm-hmm. But you can't go in there and say, yes, 100% they've done everything security-wise, because then you look back on the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade from last year. You and I talked about that right after the Super Bowl. It was the week after. This is before we started transitioning over to UFL, shortly after that. But It was during the Super Bowl celebration, the parade. You talk about the tragedies that happened there. And they thought they were fully prepared. They thought their security was 100%.
Yeah.
So if you would have asked me this question last year, I probably would have been naive enough to say, yes, they're all good security-wise. Everything's good. And then we had that event. So when I look back and I think about the events of that parade, and that wasn't even in New Orleans, a party area, okay? You raise the questions when you put it in in an area like that geographically.
Mm-hmm.
And this all happened in Kansas City before with that tragedy. It can escalate 10 times worse. I'm concerned, but at the same time, I don't want to scare the people. But I just hope that I'm coming from a good place with this. Like, did I answer it for you in the best way?
You did. And to your point about the Super Bowl celebration turned wrong in Kansas City last year, I think I forgot where I read it, but should the Chiefs win it this year, I think they're not going to. I think they said they're not going to hold it, but I believe they're probably thinking twice about holding it or something to that effect. But if they do hold a big time event like that, it definitely won't be like how it was last year or the year before.
It'll be a different setting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll do something. But there's be a lot more distance between the people and the players.
Oh yes, because that could have been a bigger mess than it actually was, and the mess was big enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you there. 100% agree with you there.
It's just sad that we can't do things like we used to, like, parades and those. You look back on how things were in the 70s, you growing up, 80s,
Mm-hmm.
those things were big back then because they were big decades before that. We've gotten to
Mm-hmm.
a point now to where we can't even have the simplest of things anymore, to where, the locally they're not going to care because that costs the local government money, the city or whoever. It costs money to put that together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they take that away, they're not going to be that upset because they're saving money, all right?
Right.
Because they're giving back to the fans by doing stuff like that. So it's another one of those situations where one person or a small group of individuals ruin it for everybody.
Yeah, I think that is the problem right there. Right there. Sort of the one apple spoiling the whole bunch type of thing. Yeah, that's exactly how I see it too. No, very, very, very astute answer. A very measured answer, and I agree with you. As the football fan, I would love to say, yeah, everything's fine. And like I said, no, this is no stranger to hosting Super Bowls or big time events. And as you said about Mardi Gras, that actually takes place first Tuesday in March this year. So yeah, having a whole lot of people come from so many different places congregating to the city, that's nothing new. That attack though was, and it could shake many different people. And I agree with you. It's one of those situations where it's like you can't really say blanketedly, yeah. Hopefully it can, but yeah. Dante, he says, look, they're bringing more security, but you got to have blind faith in our government to keep people safe. We live in scary times a lot, and there's a lot of hatred, but fingers crossed, no airplane accidents as well. Yes, and thankfully we did not hear any incidents plane wise with the Eagles and the Chiefs. So there is the positive and blind faith type of action there. So I agree with you there, Dante. Wonderful comment as well.
I will say this one
Go
more
ahead,
thing about that. They were
Go ahead.
safe. But go back and watch the footage of the Chiefs plane, whether they were boarding it to leave
Mm-hmm.
or unboarding the plane when they arrived. They never showed Tay and Travis Kelce.
I wish I had Clay Davis on here.
But no, Travis Kelce was not. They said he was there, but he was never shown on camera. And before, he sticks out like a sore thumb every single time. Where was he? Security measures. I don't think he rode with the team. I could be wrong, but they didn't show him on camera.
Lord.
That's terrible.
He probably was with Tay Tay since they had the Grammys Sunday night. So there you
He was
go.
hidden. Yep.
But I didn't even see him there. But he might have been with her, I think. But who knows? Lord have mercy. Before we get to the next question, to the tribe again. Oh my gosh, you were too much sometimes. Dante says, "Look, I'm not a fan of the hiring talking about Aaron Glenn to the Jets." He says they really are set up for failure. This actually sounds like the situation with Gerald and Brian Schottenheimer. Different.
Jerome.
He says same coaching situation, different name. Um, I could see that, but to me, the difference is there's a little there's more hands. I think they're handling the Jet situation than with the Cowboys, because with Jerry, his thought is the buck stops with me, and you ain't gonna fire me, so it don't matter what I do. You're gonna have to take what you get, and that's that. Woody Johnson can't say that. He could say, "Yeah, I signed the checks," but he's not the GM of the team. I think that's the only difference between the situation with the Cowboys and the situation with the Jets. And here you're talking about people who are in their 80s coaching. You got a guy in his 80s being a GM. Oh, boy. And as for the booth, he says, "Yeah, it would be cool. It would be cool if it was Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, and Greg Olson. That would be great." I agree with you. It would be great, and I think Brady would learn a lot from Olson just in that broadcast alone. Because
It's an
Olson,
expensive broadcast.
it would be. It would be expensive broadcast. I mean,
They'll generate enough money to have all of them on the TV at the same time, though.
I mean, because what they're paying, let's see, Fox is paying Brady what, 38 mil or close to 38 mil this year.
Well, Greg Olson's contract got reduced once Brady came in. Somehow
And
I don't know how that works. I think it's because of the type of games that he's calling now. I think that because structurally in his contract, because he's not calling all the A games anymore.
he's calling a
He's
lot
calling
of the
the B games. He's getting the B salary. So that's how that works. But yeah,
Yeah.
would, if you put them both on the A show, and they're both pretty much doing the same title,
thing. Yeah,
that would be one expensive broadcast, man.
it
So
would be.
it would be like, "Hey, Greg, come up here. We're gonna pay you less, even though you were getting paid the same before, or getting paid that
It's
type
the
of
same
pay
job.
to help make him better.
Right.
But we want to pay you B money. There's no, man.
Oh, no, I
I'd be
agree.
like-
Oh, I
I'd
agree.
be
The
like, "Nah, man, let me go to
situation's
CBS,
horrible.
bro."
Oh yeah, I agree. Situation is horrible, and I actually want him to. Yeah, that's what I want him to do. I want him to go to a situation like, well, CBS wouldn't be as good considering that looks like they have hitched. They're finally trying to hitch their wagons to Romo, although maybe they shouldn't. NBC, I think, is going to be the best bet for him. We don't know how long Chris Collinsworth is going to be the color guy. I actually see Greg Olson going there before anywhere else. But we shall see.
I would like that over there at NBC. Greg Olson over there.
Because I think he really would mesh well with Mike Tirico. So yeah, if it's any situation, I could see him being the color guy of an of A games. I think it's there more than any other place, and sooner than any other place.
Just don't go to Netflix, please don't.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I hope they don't go to Netflix. Oh yeah, before we do go to the next question, random question from Dante. He says, "Do you think that the NFL, NCAA football, do you think they're going to be the death of networks? They laid off a lot of people and sold off a lot of assets." That really is a good question, man. The way that I'm seeing how the NFL's dipping their toe into Netflix, it might be. Because I think what the Shield is seeing is like we're shelling out a lot of money just to have the privilege of being on these network television stations. I think they're trying to force the hand of NBC, of CBS, of Fox to bring down the price a bit, not of the current contracts they sign, but the next ones they sign, because I just don't believe that the NFL, as much money as they print, because they make money hand over fist, I think they're looking at, okay, we're we're extending our reach, but at the same time, I don't think we want to shell out as much money in extending our reach too. So I'm thinking that's what in my opinion, and my purview, I think that's what the NFL is doing. The NCAA is going to follow what the NFL does, and I don't care what they do. The NCAA is going to follow what the NFL does. Your thoughts, sir?
I mean, that's going to be interesting to see because streaming's taken over because the amount of money you can profit in the situation, it seems like it's greater, and depending on the avenue of where you're going. I mean, Netflix is trying to buy everything, nowadays, trying to take over everything between, it's a good test with WWE and Monday Night Raw, and then of course internationally where they used to have the WWE Network. This makes sense. It'll go in there. WWE Network used to be internationally. Now Netflix will be hosting all the PLEs internationally with Monday Night Raw, and then of course Peacock still has all the PLEs in the USA. The reason why I bring that up is depending on how that goes throughout the next year or so, and especially now that you already have Netflix hosting holiday football on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
You got 2 games. You already got Amazon Prime every Thursday night having Thursday night football. And then you've got Sunday Night Football, which is already on NBC, but it's on Peacock. All these streaming services are taking over in different aspects. NBC is the smartest one. And then, of course, you got Paramount Plus with CBS doing, but that's only like the Sunday afternoon games.
Right.
Fox is, even though they've got the app and stuff, they're kind of behind the curve with all this because they're not known for really having a streaming platform like Paramount Plus has with CBS, even though that's on a lower scale in comparison to Peacock. NBC was pretty much the first real true one out of all the major networks to jump in on this streaming, and that was with Peacock, a half a decade ago, it seems like, and the other ones are still far behind. If we're going to sit here and talk about death to networks, which is a very good question by Dante, out of all 4 of the major ones between NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, I see NBC standing tall between all 4 because of what they've built with Peacock outside of cable television. But I think in the next 10 to 15 years, I wouldn't be surprised if we're not working with cable boxes anymore, if it's all app based and it's all your TV has the app and you've got to have the internet or you're screwed nowadays in order to watch. There's no cheap box. The days of rabbit ears and analog and all that stuff died 20 years ago. I mean, the early 2000s was the last you could really, I remember the 90s. Yeah, I'm sure you remember back then. That's all like old our generations were, mine's a little bit younger still. I remember the rabbit ears and the tin foil to get an extra channel or 2 or whatever. If you're trying to have an extra TV in the house, but only pay for one cable line, there's a lot of different things you can deal with. And now those days are a long shot because it's all streaming. So, and that's what it's all turning to, pretty much the death of networks. And WWE is a big part of it, which is why I brought that up.
That's a good point, actually, and I'm glad you did, because I'm with you on that. I was like, I was like, okay, because I was looking at that too. I was like, NFL, they've gone more streaming over the last few years. WWE, they're now going streaming. Well, they've been going streaming, but they're going streaming even harder now. I'm like, okay. Looks like this is going to be how entities are going to have to design televising, and it looks like that's how they're gonna have to roll. Ryan said, look, I'll say this for Woody, talking about the owner of the Jets, Woody Johnson. He said he did have a come to Jesus moment during Aaron Glenn's introduction and saying he needed to be a better owner. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean by there's an adult in the room in Aaron Glenn. That's exactly why, because he needed to have that moment. Where it's like,
but who told him to say that? Because he didn't think of that. It was either Aaron Glenn, like you're talking about, or his kid.
Probably so. Ryan says, look, I think the pieces on the Atlantic really got to Woody. This is, but we'll see how long this bit of humility lasts. And for those who don't know, Ryan McCarthy is a hardcore Jets fan. He bleeds green in a different type of way. As Dante bleeds green.
Started with Kermit.
It all started with Kermit. Lord. Oh, and he said, comparing the Jets to the Cowboys, you can't say that about Gerald after his 11-minute, 30-second rant during Brian Schottenheimer's press conference. That's the funny thing. It's the press conference of your head coach, but the owner slash GM takes the lion's share of the time speaking. That did not happen in Eric Clinton's press conference as a new head coach, new head coach of the Jets. Good point. Of the streaming part, Six says, "Look, I'm glad for WWE's move to Netflix. He saves me money on monthly streaming fees. Although the WWE library hasn't moved to Netflix completely, if I'm not mistaken, though, AEW is now they've already made the move to Max. I think it was official either last month or in December, but yeah, they've already made the move.
They still suck though.
I will not argue on that point. I wish it was 2019 with them, not now. Six says, look, internationally, the NFL does stream on major platforms in various regions and markets. Same for other sports and entities. And Dante says, so there was talks about an all sports app, all NFL and NCAA, Major League Baseball, etc. for $70, which is true. I don't know if they're all making that commitment yet and saying, is it worth the financial investment on our end to just go all in with that? It may go that route though. It may. Who knows?
You would have to have like every single game.
Every game.
Like
every game.
You can't miss one. No
Right.
blackouts.
Right.
None of that BS. Like you
Right.
have to have all of it. And $70 is pretty steep.
But you would have to have all of that in order to pay $70 for the customer to pay $70 a month. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you would have to have NBA in there too.
Yeah.
And even for, the southern ones, because you like to watch things go around in circles, you got to have NASCAR on there. All right. You spell NASCAR backwards, spells NASCAR. All right. So, talking about that, you need to have it all on there. Yeah, I know. I just threw some other shenanigery out there with that one. But when you
That's
come,
fine.
when you bring with that, $70 pretty steep. You got to have all that on there. You got to be able to have sports all year round. Because even though I don't really constitute that as a sport, it's an argument I've had with friends of mine in this area. Don't even get me. I would talk about that for the next 2 hours. Yes. You've got to put it on there because even though they like football, they're not paying for the football app. They can't have NASCAR on there. God, can't go around circles now. So you need to have that on there if you want them to pay for it. And $70 kind of steep there, brother.
Yeah. No. But I can see them actually asking for that price though. But you talk as though you don't live in a NASCAR rich area.
I mean, I kind of do. I'm right near Richmond International Raceway.
Yeah, but you're near one of the biggest. You're near one of the biggest international NASCAR raceways. So
I've worked near it.
So yeah. So I know you know fully, and of course I just poking fun at that. And one of my friends calls it the left turn only circuit. I love that. I love that. Oh my God.
Being at a live, I will give this. Being at a live event for it is something to behold, but watching it on TV, nah, man. And it's like one of those things you go to like once every 5-10 years. It's been like 10 years since I went there and watched the race, but I can't watch it on TV, man. Like if somebody were to like, let's watch that, I'd be like, it's the perfect time to take a nap.
Yeah, it is. I feel the same. Even if it's Daytona 500, I feel the same.
You watch the first lap or two, take a nap, wake up within the last 10 laps, and you watch the ending. The ending is really, really great. Everybody else has been watching it. They're the ones drinking and getting sloshed. They're probably passed out by the time that it's over. They're not even watching the end. But you were smart. You took the nap. It was like running a cross-country race. You did it in a very smart fashion to where you still finished at the end, and you did by waking up from your nap and seeing who won the race.
Not you took the nap. That's funny. Oh my gosh. Dante says, look, it was DirecTV for all sports. He says, look, even NBA, NASCAR, tennis, soccer, it didn't include boxing, which I'm glad it didn't. because their model, I think, is good enough the way it is.
Yeah.
The sport in general, though, sucks as to how they're managing it. But yeah, their model is perfect. They don't really need to have uh, an app dedicated to boxing. It works well the
Just
way they are.
just sucks that they missed out on the whole sports entertainment part because you could have had all that in WWE, but
I agree.
except for Peacock being the only one to really jump in on it to where because Peacock owns USA, so they
That's
still
right.
that's why SmackDown has rights on
Mhm.
USA now.
Right.
But looking between the two, it's now even though that's still on cable TV on Fridays,
Hmm.
WWE is pretty much expanded to just streaming now.
Streaming.
If you take
Hmm.
that away, because at some point that's going to dissolve to where it's
Hmm.
either on just Peacock or everything's on
On
Netflix.
Netflix. And I'm thinking that, and then they're conditioning us to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I
So
agree with you on that. One
much as I
percent agree
wanted to
with you.
get rid of Netflix, I've had to find ways to keep it because of this.
Yeah. Oh well. Que sera, sera. All right, now let's Yeet. All right, now let's get to the action on the field. Again, uh, this game will start Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Fox will carry it. Let's talk about what the Chiefs defense needs to do. Now, obviously, the uh, the bulk of the offense and the way the straw is stirred when it comes to the Eagles offense is Saquon Barkley. So obviously the Chiefs want to find a way to curtail the impact that number 26 has. Um, the Eagles proved in the NFC Championship game that Jalen Hurts, when focused, can be in the pocket and he can dissect a secondary. In this regard, considering the Chiefs' secondary is a little bit better than the Commanders' one, should the Eagles be drawn into Hurts throwing the ball all over the place?
That's a good question because I brought up some statistics I want to talk to you about, Cole.
All right.
When you look at the defense
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to the two,
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking about the Eagles' offense going against the Chiefs' defense.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles' defense is a little bit more scary in most
Oh, yeah.
aspects when you look at total
Yeah. No,
defense.
no
When you
question.
look at passing defense,
Mm-hmm.
Eagles number one out of everyone, which is why they're as big time as they have
Mm-hmm.
been this year. But
Right.
defensive wise, when it comes to the rushing defense,
That's where you can
the
get them.
Chiefs' defense has been better than the Eagles'
Right.
defense,
Mm-hmm.
rushing wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they're going to have to be. They're going to be drawn more to throwing the ball, like you're asking here. I'm going to say
Mm-hmm.
yes, because they're going to contain Saquon in one of the best fashions that we've seen Saquon being contained to. And
Mm-hmm.
I bring that up because throughout this entirety of this season, there have been very few games that Saquon was held to under 100 yards. I
Right.
have them all up on my screen right now.
Look
Um,
at
the
you.
first, the first one, you know how it is. You
Mm-hmm.
know how it is. But look,
Mm-hmm.
the first one you look at, even though it was just under with only 95 yards, the Falcons held them in their second game of the year to just
That's right.
95 yards.
Forgot
In
he
the
got on
fourth
under
game,
100 in that game. Yeah.
in the fourth game of the year, the Buccaneers held him to only 84,
Right.
but he still included 2 receptions, and with the amount of yards, he came close
Mm-hmm.
to adding what he needed for that day. After that, the following week, I'd say the worst game that Saquon had this entire year. And it's kind of weird that he did it even though it was the 5th game of the year, he did it against the Browns, but it was the Browns defense with Myles Garrett and company, which was the best thing the Browns had. And they were still competing at that point, being only week 5, and
Right.
still had a chance, even though their offense was playing absolutely terrible, still had a
Yes.
chance.
Okay.
Myles
Mm-hmm.
Garrett, big reason why they were able to contain Saquon. That's why I'm saying you bring him over to Washington within the division, you got a good chance containing Saquon next year and making a run if you make a move for someone like Myles Garrett this offseason. But I'm going to digress on that for right now. We got plenty of an offseason to talk about that.
True.
Right now with Saquon Barkley, that was week 5. Yes, week 5. That was the worst he did. It was 2.6
All year.
yards per carry. If you have a defense like that, which I bring that up, the reason why I do, because the Chiefs were the 8th best defense against the rush.
Hmm.
Before everything that happened with the Browns, they were in the top 5 for their rushing defense. Now they fell down to like the 20th position throughout the remainder of the season because it all fell apart with the Deshaun Watson situation and everything. They stopped trying as hard. Can't really blame them. But at the point that they were playing at this point in week 5, they were in the top 5 rushing defense. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I brought that point up right there. So, Chiefs have a better rushing defense than the Eagles. If you take
Hmm.
chapters and with the preparation of what they do, and you've got Steve Spagnuolo, who's one of the smartest individuals out there as far as running a defense, and with what you've got over there with Chris Jones running the defense as you're pretty much a
Right.
leader, and your
Hmm.
other 10 players who've been following suit, even though they've been better in certain cases, in certain ways. Overall, as an entirety of a defense, they're at probably their peak right now.
They're a really good unit.
At,
Yeah.
because they are part of the reason why this team won 15 games this year. Okay.
Huge
It
part.
was
Yeah.
because of the defense.
Hmm.
Even though Mahomes was smart and magical in certain ways,
Hmm.
he didn't have to lean on a very heavy offense to win games. The defense was playing their part this year, and they didn't have to score 30 and 40 points because their defense was containing the other side. So,
Hmm.
looking at it for what it is, I feel like the Chiefs could have a shootout game with the Eagles if they needed to. But I
Right.
don't think this Chiefs defense is going to allow that, and it's going to be mainly starting with the fact that they're going to have answers to contain Saquon in the run. Not as much as the Browns did in Week 5.
I agree
But
there.
when you look at other games like with the Buccaneers holding them to 84 yards, the Cowboys held them to 66 yards on November 10th. You look at the Steelers, held them to 65 yards on 19 carries, 3.4 yards on December 15th. So that was recent. That was the last time that Saquon was held under 100 yards, because then the following week on December 22nd, he ran for 150 against the Commanders, 167 against the Cowboys, 119 against the Packers in the first round of the playoffs. Against the Rams in the divisional round, he had 205, and against the Commanders last week, he had 118 yards, and he has 5 rushing touchdowns in the past 2 games in these playoffs. I don't think that he continues to have numbers like that in this Super Bowl. And it all starts with the number 8th ranked rushing defense of the entirety of the NFL this year, of the Chiefs. And that's the reason why they will be drawn to Hurts throwing the ball all over the place, because they will have answers, and that being the Chiefs defense will have answers for their running game for the Eagles.
Now, Dante being a fan of the Eagles, he says you got to remember against the Saints and the Bucks, they did not have AJ Brown nor Devontae Smith. Both are, of course, healthy. And to buffer your point there, Dante, if I'm not mistaken, I think Barkley ended up running for 170 yards against the Saints. So you do have that. And he also says, look, AJ got hurt a game against the Packers in Brazil, and Smith at that time had a concussion. We're healthy now. Yeah. Um, I think what the Eagles can hang their hat on is, I think we saw that balance that I believe is necessary, that they have to utilize going forward, because it was getting to the point where I think people were thinking, oh, all right, so this is easy. Uh, Force Hurts to be in the pocket. Well, he's not going to be able to be effective there. They got to have Barkley run the ball over how many times, so it gets to the point where we can stack the box against them. And that comes with a lot of dangers. One of which being, well, you're disrespecting Hurts. 2, you're disrespecting the wide receivers that you just mentioned, Dante, that both Smith and Brown can torch secondaries. So you have that. But I believe that the reason why I asked the question that way, I believe that is the Chiefs' defensive strategy. I think they're thinking,
Yeah.
okay, who's going to hurt us more if we were to who's going to hurt us less if we were to say we got to stop this element? If we keep Hurts in the pocket, would that hurt us worse? If we decide to just say, okay, well, screw that, we can actually have it run all over the place too, along with Barkley, or Should we have 7, 8 in the box at times and basically say we're going to contain Barkley? If we did not defend which option, which would hurt us worse? So that they figured, okay, yeah, stacking the box would hurt us. No, um, yeah, stacking the box would hurt us worse. So we got to dare Hurts to beat us, and I think that is where we are with the Eagles defense. And I think that is the better strategy for with the Chiefs defense. I think that's the better strategy for them. Now,
But you got to respect Jalen Hurts too, because I mean statistically, when it comes
that's where
to
I'm going.
numbers, he's got his best rating this year in his entire career with a 103 rating.
That's
And
where I'm going. He's accurate. Yeah.
The least amount of interceptions with the amount of passes he's got in his entire career. You gotta put that speck on his name, like Birdman would say.
You do. You do. That's the thing. He's accurate, and this year he's taking care of the ball better. So, and I've had these debates and arguments with people who are like, well, this guy consistently throws for under 150 yards. I don't give a crap. Did he turn the ball over? Did he throw for 65 to 70% completion rating? When to shut up. He's doing his job. Yeah, ridiculous. But yeah, I think that is what the Chiefs defense has to do. They got to force Hurts to be the one to beat them. And he has to do it with his arm because he could beat him with his legs, but they have to force his arm to beat them. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm saying that is the best chance for the Chiefs to win. Now, turning the attention to the Eagles defense in this regard. So the Chiefs offense is definitely not as dynamic as it was during the Tyreek Hill era, where all Mahomes had to do was throw the ball deep twice or 3 times in the game. Basically, the Mahomes is taking whatever the defense gives them. What the Eagles defense do well, I believe, is they can run blitz at times, and they can hit gaps at times where they don't have to run blitz, but they put the pressure on you to be perfect running the ball. You can run on them, but you have to be dedicated to run on them, and you got to be successful passing, and that is where people can't have success against them, because what you've said and what Dante has said, you're talking about the best secondary in the game. So, pressuring Mahomes, what type of pressure should the Eagles defensive front mount against a quarterback like Mahomes, where he can, if the offense is not going, whether passing or running, he actually can get that back-breaking first down against them?
You're going to have to go about this in a similar way that you did with Jaden Daniels this past week, because
Nice. I like that.
Because even though Mahomes doesn't run as much as Jaden Daniels has ran in his rookie season, he has proven that he can be mobile when he needs to, and you need to respect that element of his game, because at certain points throughout the Super Bowl runs that he has had over the past half decade, he has shown his ability to extend the drives with his legs, and that's what he's going to do if you put him in that position. If you got all of his receivers covered and he's dropping back, because when it comes to his running game, it's depleted a little bit. We'll talk about that here more in a little bit.
We are.
But mainly for this question right here, I would say you got to go about him more in a Jaden Daniels aspect, because he's not going to stand back there like a Statue of Liberty,
No.
and he's going to be probably out of the opponents that they have faced. Jaden Daniels was a good one for them to face before Mahomes, because Mahomes is like a very well polished version of what Jaden Daniels can become in the future.
Good analysis.
If you continue to coach him up right, and he continues to grow and meet the potential that we have seen in a very short period of time between his college career and here in the 1 year in the NFL, Mahomes has been doing this for pretty close to a decade now. He's got a lot of time established and has one impressive resume. When it comes to this situation right here, I say you got to play him like any other mobile quarterback, and the most comparable one is the most recent game you just had, and that was the NFC Championship. Played your defense very similar to how you played that, and I think you would be just fine as far as your defense goes.
I love the fact you said play him like a mobile quarterback, because I think that is the downfall of a lot of these defenses. They play him like a traditional drop back pocket passer, which he pretty much is. But them legs destroy a defense, especially a defensive front where they have all the gaps protected. I mean, they're not protected. They have all the gaps hit. They have they have the stunts that they're going to draw. They have Mahomes cornered the way they want, and then Mahomes finds a way to step into the pocket, and jet away and get away from that pressure. I 100% agree with you. I think the way the Eagles defended Jalen Daniels, which to me I think is a bigger threat in terms of his legs than Mahomes is. The way they defended him, I think that's a similar way they're going to have to defend Mahomes, because I really believe the way that the Eagles can get a lot of hay is if they can limit a lot of those breakaway runs that Mahomes has. If they can also make that running game not being so much, and if they can continue to have the Chiefs take what the defense gives them, and I know that the Eagles are not going to give anything deep, so that already I know they're going to take away. So if they could just simply have them dink and dunk and dink and dunk and dink and dunk, and feel hopeless that they can't really generate any offense running the ball or with Mahomes escaping pressure, yes, I agree. That's the way they have to defend him. Dante, and we're getting to this now. He says, "Look, we are talking about the Eagles. We're a better secondary than 2 years ago, and to be fair, the Chiefs really haven't seen a back like Saquon. No team has seen a back like Saquon this year. No team. The closest would be Derrick Henry, and he's a different type of back than Saquon. But no team has seen a back like him this year." He says, "Look, this game's going to come down to Hurts, and I 100% agree with you. Hurts is going to have to be the reason why the Eagles win this game, not Saquon, because I think Saquon might have to play the most glorified of decoys, I think, in order for the Eagles to be successful. If he plays well, blowing them out, I'm gonna change the sentence for what I'm seeing with what you're describing. He says, you think you're gonna blow them out because we'll get turnovers. And the Eagles have been good in getting takeaways this playoff stretch. If it's the only thing I'm gonna add, you will blow them out if you get turnovers, because it's not all that easy to get turnovers against them. I mean, they only had one giveaway a week ago, so, and they didn't have any against the Texans in the divisional round. It is not easy to get takeaways from the Chiefs. Dante says, "Look, let's be clear. Cook," talking about James Cook of the Bills, the running back, was cooking that defense. Yes, 13 carries, 85 yards in running the ball against the Chiefs. If they ran it more, we'll be playing the Bills. Here's a funny thing: the Bills gained almost 150 yards rushing as a team against the Chiefs, and still lost. So I agree. I think if Cook ran it more, they probably would have won it. But we'll get to why I think that might not be the case. Dante says, "Look, we need to stop Kelsey. If we get there with our front four and spy on Patrick," which basically that's what Drew was alluding to. I think you'll have a spy on Patrick. You could get there with your front four, because I think if Jalen Carter can clog the middle like he has been doing well, and that's the one thing that I wish people talk more about, and no one is. He has manned that middle pretty doggone well this playoff stretch. To me, he is the key of that Eagles defense. He clogs the middle. The Eagles defense can do whatever they want, and that is what I've learned. And I agree. I think if you could contain Kelsey, but the thing is, the Chiefs have learned if you contain Kelsey, they're going to get someone else to be a problem for you in other ways. For example, you had Worthy, who was a problem for the Chiefs. A problem for the Bills. Now, Kelsey was a problem for the Texans, but that's how the Chiefs offense is. They're so versatile. It's like you stop one, there's going to be someone else that comes along to be a problem. But yeah, Kelsey is the place to start, but they're going to have to also stop other things too. And I think that's going to be the key. Can the Eagles defense in the secondary stop other pieces along with Kelsey to basically say, well, all Mahomes can do is just throw it to Pacheco and punt. That is what you have to do. That's a tall order for any defense, even the Eagles. But that's a tall order, though. All right, go ahead, brother. You going to do the
No, I'm ready. I'm ready for the next one. I was saying it was a tall order. I was lifting my hands and raising the roof.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, flipping it to the Chiefs offense. Now, you made it a really good point in saying that it's a little easier to run against the Eagles front than it is to run against the Chiefs front. And I think, to me, for the Chiefs to actually get any hay, I think that's what they need to do. A diet of Pacheco, a diet of Hunt, even a diet of P. Ryan. Whatever they could do running-wise, and of course, Mahomes getting out the pocket. I think that is where it lies. The only issue I have with the Chiefs running game is that they're not giving up on it too early. I think they don't make it too much of a point to run with their backs enough. So it sort of is like the question is it a lost cause for the Chiefs to run the ball? But when I say run the ball, I'm saying run it with running backs, because seemingly to me, Patrick Mahomes is the most reliable runner they got on the Chiefs. So is it a lost cause for a running back to run the ball consistently against the Eagles?
That's a good question, because in the last game you had, Kareem Hunt was the leading rusher for your team, but 7 carries, 64 yards and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes right behind him with 11 carries for 43 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Xavier Worthy, the receiver, had 2 carries for 16 yards. And Pacheco, another one, 5 carries for 12. It's like they don't have any established running backs helping them out.
Right.
This Chiefs team, the way their running core has been this year, they shouldn't be in the Super Bowl. I mean, they
100.
are.
100.
It is miraculous based on their defensive play and the mistakes or lack thereof that they have made as an offense. Like, they don't have a strong running game, but they're not giving the ball up. So, because they're playing like they've been there before, that's literally why. If it wasn't for the fact that they have been there before, a team like this would not be in the Super Bowl right now. I think
agree.
it's because of the championship caliber that they have as individuals on their team. That's the reason why they're there right now. So, when it comes to, is it a lost cause for the Chiefs to run the ball? I don't think so as a whole, because you still have to establish the run. You have to work the clock, right? It's all about
you
time
must
of
work the
possession.
clock with this team. Yes.
Yeah. So if you don't work the clock with the Chiefs, you have no. I mean, with the Eagles defense, you have no chance, because their scoring defense throughout the entire season, the Eagles were the second best in the NFL, with only giving up 17.8 points per game. Okay. After that, the Chiefs weren't far behind them. They only gave up 19.2 points per game, so they were pretty close. They were in the top 5 of scoring defense.
Yeah, they're stingy too.
In playoff average, they're not that far. They're about a field goal off, because the Eagles are giving up about 18.3 points per game, and the Chiefs are giving up 21.5. The difference between the two with total touchdowns they've given up is the Eagles have given up 33 to the Chiefs 37. Now, I bring all this up because when it comes to the playoffs, they're very similar with what they've done as far as giving up touchdowns. Both teams have only given up 5 total touchdowns in the playoffs throughout the entirety of their playoff run. This is the Chiefs in 2 games and the Eagles in 3. So even though the numbers look like they're doing this the same, the Eagles are only giving up 5 touchdowns in 3 games to the Chiefs 2.
5 and 2.
So they're giving up less touchdowns in more games, and the Chiefs are giving up more in fewer. So that's basically how those numbers break down, which is why I wanted to bring that up and make that a point. So looking at that, you've got to run the ball in order to establish some type of time of possession.
100.
But I think you're going to be running it more so for that reason. and not to really be picking up a lot of yards consistently, because Kareem Hunt is not the Kareem Hunt you had when he first was drafted to the Chiefs. He is a
No.
shell of himself. He has been beat up by the league. This is
Hmm.
his swan song, so he can basically be part of the feeling of going to the Super Bowl, or at least be
Right.
part of making a run with the Chiefs, because he went to Cleveland before he could really experience all of the highlights of what this team has become since he started this journey with
Hmm.
Patrick Mahomes, because they both came into the league together.
Right.
So, um, for Kareem Hunt to be your leading running back, it's kind of like it's. I don't want to say that because then that's really throwing shade, but at the same time, it was what the Cowboys wanted to do with Zeke, but it
I
didn't
got you.
pay off in a positive way for them this year because
Running
of the
back by
team that
committee. Yeah.
Jarrell has built.
Hmm.
But Andy Reid and the Chiefs did with Kareem Hunt what Cowboys fans wanted Jerry Jones to do with Ezekiel Elliott this year.
Hmm.
That's probably the nicest way I can put it. But the sad thing is this, he should be there as your like secondary back, and you should have a 1A in support of him, or at least a 1B working, who's a rookie or somebody young who's building to
Right.
be your next
Yes.
1A. So I can't really sit here and say the Chiefs dropped the ball, because you had the opportunity to get Xavier Worthy in the first round and you got him.
Got to get
Okay,
him.
and
Yeah.
I think that move right there, it was good for your future,
Hmm.
because and beyond this year.
Hmm.
But this offseason, they got to focus on their run game, because their run game this year has been
100%.
depleted. Regardless of what happens this Sunday, you have to
Hmm.
focus on your running game this offseason. You might have to focus on a tight end, because you don't know what's going to happen
Oh,
with
you got to.
Kelsey retiring. There's many things that can happen this offseason to where we're more than likely not going to see this replicated next year to where they're going for 4.
Mm,
So they made
not
this
this
based
way.
on the will of the team being there before, but their running
Hmm.
game is severely depleted. I don't think it's a lost cause. I'm going to say no to your question, but I am
Hmm.
going to say it's not going to. It's not a lost cause to run it for the clock effectiveness, but
I
it's a
got
lost cause if you're going to be running the ball for a lot of positive yards. If you're expecting to run it and get 5 to 10 yards every single time you carry the ball, there's no way. Probably 2 to 4 at max. I'd say around 2 to 3 yards is what you're probably going to average per carry.
When I was learning the game, I mean, I played it before I really learned it. But when I was really learning the game, uh, I remember it was a 2000 Titans, and they were playing in the playoffs. The Ravens, who eventually went on to win the Super Bowl. Uh, One of the things that he talked about was, I think they had Jamal Lewis on the team, the Ravens. He didn't gain a lot of yards, but he had a lot of carries. And I remember Tom Jackson, formerly of NFL Prime Time, he said, sometimes you have to run not necessarily for the yardage, you got to run for the carries and the time of possession, because you got to give the defense the look that even though you might not be successful, you're still going to run the ball, and you have to gear up to stop it. So yeah, I agree with you there. And I think the Chiefs need to do that. They need to still give the appearance of running. And hey, maybe pop a run or two. Dante says, look, remember, we beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Here's the difference. You got a team that they're able to run the ball, and they actually look to run the ball as soon as they get off the bus. And Lamar Jackson, as good as he is throwing, there's times that if you're good enough defense, and you saw it with that game, if you're good enough defense, you can limit him to be a pocket passer, and his effectiveness is not quite there. You can't do that with Mahomes. And that's the only issue there. You can't do it with Mahomes because Mahomes can gobble you up in the pocket. We saw it. We saw it as ascension, and we've seen it even as recently as this past Sunday. He can mess you up in the pocket. So that's the only issue I see in terms of, well, yeah, you can't do that. Well, with the Chiefs, that's a difficult task because this guy can beat anybody in the pocket. Now, to me, I think the game where it really falls in terms of the impact of it, the matchup of the Super Bowl isn't between Mahomes versus Hurts. It isn't between the defensive lines of either side versus the offensive lines of either side. It is, to me, it is between the offense coordinator of the Eagles, Kellen Moore, and the head coach of the team, Nick Sirianni, who also calls plays as well, versus, to me, the best coordinator in the last 25 years, defense coordinator for the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo. Now, the Eagles, they love to establish the physicality and run the ball. That's obvious. They want to run. They feel they're more physical. They want to smash you in the mouth. The Chiefs defensively, and the offensive, that's what the Eagles are. Defensively, the Chiefs are we can bend to whatever you want. You might even have some success against us in what you do, but in key moments, you are not going to be successful. Whatever your best play is, we got something that's going to stop your best play in the clutch moment. And time again, we saw that. Heck, we even saw this 2 years ago, although Kellen Moore wasn't the offensive coordinator of the team at the time. But we saw it even then 2 years ago against these two teams when they were played in the Super Bowl. So my question to you is, can Steve Spagnuolo's play calling be neutralized by Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni?
No, not gonna be neutralized. Because Steve Spagnuolo was putting X's and O's on chalkboards when these two were still in Huggies. Okay, so looking at this for what it is, whatever they have cooked up in their young little minds, like Jimmy Neutron, he is going to be on the other side with his X's and O's on a tablet now and not on a chalkboard, ready to rock and roll. Because every single time we count the Chiefs out, they find a way to win the mother-fathering game. Except for Week 18 when Carson Wentz was leading the charge, it did not matter. And of course, a game against the Bills. We'll talk about all that later on. But right now, that means no merit when you're facing a team like right now. So when it comes to Steve Spagnuolo's play calling being neutralized by Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, no. Because he was looking up ways to defeat the younger talent when they were still in their Huggies, because he knew that they were coming for him when they were not in their Huggies anymore. So that's exactly what's happening on the Super Bowl Sunday. He will be the one neutralizing the ones formerly known as Huggies wearers.
When Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore were still in their Huggies. Oh my gosh. In Kellen Moore's case, that actually is rather true.
There was Similac on their breath.
Oh, Lord, probably so. Dante, to the last point, he says, yeah, Cole, but so we're not going to hand the ball off 16 times to Saquon like Baltimore did with Henry. It's true. I know you're going to hand the ball off a little more to Saquon. We know that. You got to do that. That's where your bread is buttered offensively. He says, look, the question you just asked about Sirianni and Moore versus Spagnuolo, he says, that's my biggest concern, Cole. Hurts was good early against the blitz, but then he fell off, and a lot of that was play design. And that is an issue if that's the case. And I saw that against the Rams in the divisional round. He seemed to be okay early on because he got a chance to run for a touchdown, and Saquon got off. But seemingly when the Rams got comfortable in what the Eagles were doing, they were getting the Hurts time and time again, actually putting pressure on him to where they hurt him. And to me, when I see that, just as an observer, I'm saying there's some tells. Obviously, the Eagles haven't adjusted, or they feel as though Hurts is basically saying, I got this, and he's audibling. And he's all into what the Rams are thinking they're going to do anyway, and they steamroll him. And if the play design is that way, it reads to me that they're not adjusting enough, they're not adjusting sooner, or they're not adjusting good enough to where, okay, the pressure's changing. Because the thing about Spagnuolo is that he will change on a drop of a dime what the attack is going to be against your offense. We saw that last Sunday, where seemingly the Bills were able to run on the Chiefs, and all of a sudden, the last 4 plays the Bills had, the Bills couldn't do anything. Uh, 2 errant throws in the first 2 downs, and a completion where, well, it was a screen, but they threw to where the pressure was going, and then the heave that was almost miraculously caught on 4th down. But the last 2 plays, there were stunts that the Bills were not prepared for and did not see. That is what I'm thinking. The more Sirianni brain trust has to neutralize with Spagnuolo. And sometimes you just can't run at the problem. You got to throw it. And you got the dynamic wide receivers to do it. And I think Hurts has the ability to throw it. But Spagnuolo just knows. I don't know how he does. He just knows how to get your offense into the worst setup to where you're basically panicking, saying, I don't know, we can actually execute this. And there's been many times I've seen the Eagles throughout the season actually feel that way, where it's like, we're stuck in neutral offensively. I felt that with the Rams. I felt that with the Packers before in the wild card round. And I even felt that with the game you mentioned against the Ravens, where offensively didn't really get on track until like the second half. But hopefully, you can find some success against Spagnuolo. But I think it's going to be really, really tough. And I agree with you, Drew. I don't think the play calling that Spagnuolo will throw at Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni will be neutralized by them. It could be countered, but neutralized, no. And it's going to be a good chess matchup just there. When the Eagles have the ball on offense, we'll see how it's going to go, especially in the fourth quarter. Well, the only things left is, who do you have winning this game, sir?
I don't think we'll be sitting up here next Monday talking about this.
It will not be a game.
No, it's not going to be like the NFC Championship. But unfortunately, we will be up here next Monday talking about one of these two teams taking the... I'm going to start it off with what I want to see happen, and then I'm going to finish it off with what I am thinking we're going to see happen. I really want to see the Eagles bring the Super Bowl back to the NFC East, back to the NFC, and away from the Chiefs, because it has been way too much Tay-Tay for the past 2 seasons. Okay? Swifties need to learn what it's like to be served there. Because
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Story is this.
Too much Tay-Tay.
We are just tired.
He said too much Tay-Tay.
Too much Tay-Tay. We're tired of the Tay-Tay. We're tired of the Swifties. And we're just flat old tired of the Chiefs. All right?
Oh,
I can't sit up here too many more times with this type of face and say tired in a straight way when it comes to all of us being out here feeling this way about Tay-Tay, old Trav, and everything that comes about it, because we're just tired. All right. Now, back to the situation at hand with the Chiefs, who make us feel out here in these streets. When it comes to this, we want to see the Chiefs win this game. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of speculation about referees
good
certain
Lord.
pockets or lack thereof in certain directions by other teams. and the Chiefs being at the right place at the right time for financial compensation, and you put all those pieces of the puzzle however you want together to formulate your own opinion. I think I just did that very well, and I'm looking forward to making a short out of that. But right here and now, that puzzle that I just put together for you to put together, all of it accumulates into decisions going one way or the other. And the decision, just like in the PI call against James Bradbury a couple of years ago, could come back to haunt you because all you did was cry, Eagles fans. You cried about the referees. And then the people cried about how the Chiefs got here for the
Oh,
third
Lord.
consecutive season. Everybody cried because we were tired, but not the Swifties. They weren't tired. They're energized because they're looking to get their third consecutive Super Bowl. They're not tired. What they're ready to do is ready to hold that trophy up yet again. And unfortunately, due to some decisions being made out there by the puzzle that you are yet put together out here in the comments, I hope you do. But if you don't, that puzzle put together, it basically spells CHIEFS, win. Chiefs win. And I don't know how, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because I just spelled it out for you. But what I can say is this, whether we like it or not, no matter how, no matter why, no matter when. We know when. The win is going to be when I click this button for this Sunday. It's happening at this time. At 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time this Sunday. That's when it's happening. The why, the how, the A, the B, the C, the X, Y, and Z. It's coming together this Sunday for the Chiefs to win their third consecutive Super Bowl. I'm
Well,
sorry, Chiefs. I'm sorry, Eagles.
well,
I don't want to say it either, but we have to.
well. Unlike Drew, I don't really have a rooting interest. I want to see a similar game like we saw 2 years ago against these two teams. I don't care which one wins. I personally don't. I just want good play. I want all sides to show that they can ball out and shine. That's all I care about. Now, this is the one thing that I find interesting, and this is what is the tell for me, Dante. He says, look, talking about Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. He says they're going to have to put a lot of hot reads and quick throws for Hurts, something that he hasn't done lately. But if the blitz doesn't get there, it's over. Here's the thing. The blitz is going to get there. The question is, when is he going to dial it up? And he didn't really blitz all that much, so much like no against the Bills until the last possession they had. He'll throw something. He'll throw something in there. So that is the key. That's the tell. When is the blitz coming? And that's the guessing game you have. But yeah, I agree. The hot reads and the quick throws have to be there in case it comes sooner than you think, or at odd times than you anticipated. I don't think, to me, the Eagles have enough to defend that. Saquon, I think, can boogie all over the Chiefs. And if they do get the turnovers, I agree with you, Dante, they will win. The Eagles will. Unfortunately, seeing Tay dressed in Chief Red in the Grammys Sunday night, I mean, dress and shoes, and nails painted that color too. Not because of her, but because I just don't think a team has been able to solve how you can get the Chiefs out of playing this close game and have them make a mistake and blink late. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think the Chiefs are going to do the same thing. And I hate to say this to you, Dante, not because I'm rooting for it, but because this is what I'm seeing. I think they're going to lure the Eagles into having a close game late, and somehow Mahomes is going to do something on his end to put the Chiefs up. And I think Chris Jones will slam the door on the other end to seal it. I think we're going to see history. I'm not rooting for it, but I think we will see history with the Chiefs becoming the first team in the Super Bowl era to win back-to-back Super Bowl championships. Well, there you have it. That concludes
As long as it's one.
But it's not over just yet. Welcome to the post game. Now, this is where Drew and I take our takes from what we've seen over the past week and give our final thoughts as we end this particular episode. And Drew, the floor is yours, sir.
I want to utilize this time to give my take for the snowflake of the week.
I knew I forgot something. Thank you, sir. All right, and who is your snowflake, sir?
When it comes to my choice for the snowflake of the week, I got to go with somebody who used to be a coach on a team that I like to cheer for. Eric Bieniemy, with that Eli Manning type of look on his face in that bottom left-hand corner.
Oh, Lord.
As well as that look on his face when he was with UCLA in the top right-hand corner. Eric Bieniemy.
Really?
Former offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric Bieniemy. Former offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, Eric Bieniemy. Former offensive coordinator for the UCLA Bruins. Actually, he was as well as an assistant head coach. All this from 2018 on. This man is a two-time Super Bowl mother, father, and champion as part of the Kansas City Chiefs. But ever since then, his life has fallen apart football-wise, because then he goes to the Commanders and dealing with Sam Howell. There was a lot of promise, didn't quite work out because he leaves from a coach, a very, very genius offensive mind in Andy Reid, and then goes to the Commanders where he is all by his lonesome, and they win 4 games. Then goes to UCLA, and it doesn't work out there after he tried to replace good old Saint Chip over there calling plays at UCLA, and it didn't work out as the assistant head coach / offensive coordinator. He is gone, and he thinks that he can come on back to the NFL, and comes on back, and he does, under a genius, so-called genius from the Detroit Lions, offensive coordinator, to hide under Ben Johnson. And all he's going to do, because they don't even trust him to run the offense, is just be a running backs coach. I picked him as my snowflake of the week because he continues to hide under better coaching. That is my selection for the snowflake of the week there, Cole Johnson. And that is how I feel. Now, when it comes to the post game, very excited about this week's game, Super Bowl action. Very excited to recap that this upcoming week for Total Football Talk episode 76. But right now I forgot to click this button throughout the entirety of the show. We are here for episode 75. As we are live for hard-hitting gridiron action, whether you're watching this on Comey Media or Sartoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
That's right.
Or the replay on BS3 Network.
Thank you, BS3.
Yes, thank you very much, BS3. Or during the audio versions between several different audio platforms. Thank you,
radio stations.
Out here in these streams, we greatly appreciate you. But when it comes to this right here, it's been a great year of football. It's going to be a little bit, but it's not right immediately after is what it felt like last year. But the UFL is coming a little bit later. It's going to be March 28th, so we pretty much will have like 5 to 6 weeks, in between. Between NFL and UFL action. But when it comes to that, looking forward to talk about the UFL and the CFL and the NFL in 2025 as we will get closer to that. And I also look forward to looking at more ways to throw more shade, basketball-wise, at this guy. During the NFL offseason, because they just traded a big man for a point guard. You can score points, but how are you going to defend? Great job to those of you out there in support of. Because he has a better chance at getting the medal that we talked about earlier with Team USA in flag football than he does at another NBA championship. And that is my final take on episode 70, Motherfather and 5.
Why are you like this? Goodness gracious. We weren't even talking about
Okay.
but he had to be brought up. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for the catch. I appreciate that. Thank you for looking out.
No problem. No problem.
Oh, man. But I will do the same as my partner. I will combine my snowflake of the week with my final thoughts. I shall go final thoughts first because my snowflake of the week sort of ties into it. We're seeing a lot of these coaching hires and coaching practices, and there've been some disturbing things that have come up. And the biggest disturbing thing that has come up, at least for yours truly, is the blatant um misuse. I don't think is the right word. I said the blatant manipulation of the Rooney Rule. And for those who don't know what it is, the Rooney Rule is a simple case of if you have a coaching or an executive hire that you need to fulfill, you must do so before you pick your guy. You have to have I hate to say minority, non-Caucasian. You have to have a non-Caucasian candidate um, be interviewed for that position, both coaching and executive positions. We have seen the manipulation of it to the point where it's gotten comical. And also another reason I didn't mention earlier, uh, one of the reasons I gave Aaron Glenn the grand champ of the week this week was simply because he saw the handwriting on the wall when Jared Mayo only got 1 year with the Patriots and got the boot. He got the invite to be a head coaching candidate for Robert Kraft. Everybody knowing full well the guy that he wanted was Mike Vrabel. And Aaron Glenn said this to one Mr. Kraft.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
This is a problem, Shield, you got to fix. And I'm not saying you got to un-DEI it, but you have to find some way to where you are being not so disingenuous to those who are actually looking for coaching positions. But at the same time, you actually have to be mindful of merit. Be mindful of merit, but also be mindful of good candidates who you might not look at because the good old boy network is in full effect. Now, Gerald got on my nerves by he got away with, I'm going to try to hide Dion. When he didn't want Dion, he wanted a puppet. Enter Brian Schottenheimer, puppet fitting on puppeteer's hand. But the Deion Sanders thing was a smokescreen, and that was frustrating and upsetting to me. But you got to find a way to circumvent this rule. But I know in the end, all 30, all 31, all 31 principal owners and the person who actually pulls the strings, who's not the owner of the Packers, I know that you all will find your guy, and the final decision is yours. Like with someone like in Jacksonville, the Jaguars, where you found your guy. Out went Peterson, in came in Liam Cohen, and he came from the Bucks. And you summarily said, "Nah, we actually want to pillage more of the Bucks coaching staff," and the Bucks were like, "Nope, you ain't gonna hire anybody from our staff or even interview anybody." But this leads into my snowflake this week, one Mr. Liam Cohen. And the reason why he is such, memo to anybody who goes for a job interview. And it definitely goes for if you land the job. Know the culture in which you are inheriting. Know the culture in which what you are doing and where you're going. Know what is expected before you step foot on whatever property it is. Because The more prepared you are, the better you'll be going. And if you show the opposite, you're going to look as though you're ill prepared, and you're going to basically look like Adam Gase when he was being announced as the head coach of the Jets, with eyes bucked so wide that you would think that it was one of those cartoon caricatures that you're watching. But one Mr. Liam Cohen basically looks like a deer in headlights already, but no, that's really how he looks. You did the biggest no, and I'm surprised Jacksonville did not run you out of town as soon as that press conference ended, with you introducing yourself to the public and the press, when you had to basically get the city behind you and saying, quote, Duval, close quote. Duval? Really? Come on, Liam. I don't live in the area. I don't live in the city. I don't live in the county. And I know this. The city of Jacksonville and Duval County is one and the same, because there is not another city, if I'm not mistaken, that is in Duval County but Jacksonville. And if you get out Jacksonville state limits, you are in city limits, you are in another county of Florida. I know that you're supposed to go Duval, and I don't live there. If you are going to show that you are that ill prepared there, just how much you're going to show how ill prepared you are in leading a team that basically is circling the drain to at least catching up to the Texans, who's the team that runs the AFC South. Your ill preparedness was a joke. And hopefully your stint as the Jaguars head coach doesn't end as a joke. But in how you got the troops ready in saying Duval, I doubt it. I mean, Duval. Really?
As long as it's one.
I went to go find one yesterday, but I wasn't able to look at tomorrow. And like,
It's great.
so
I love it.
actually, I was getting to
I hope it actually is recording.
That was a great point with Liam.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know,
Because
I
go
want
ahead.
to add one thing though to kind of
Please.
help complement your take of Liam.
Go ahead.
He's only stayed in one place 1 year at a time. He bounces from team to team every single year. He's with Tampa Bay last year, 2024, as their offensive coordinator. The year before
Right.
that, he was an offensive coordinator with Kentucky. The year before that, he was offensive coordinator with the LA Rams. The year before that, he was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Kentucky. The year before that, he was the LA Rams assistant quarterbacks coach. The year before that, he actually had a 2-year stint as the assistant wide receivers coach with the LA Rams. That was the last time. In 2018 to 2019 was the last time. In this decade, in 2020s, Liam is a one-and-done coach no matter where he goes. I see that being the potential for Liam this year in Jacksonville.
You might be right. You might be right. That might be the case. Because when I saw that press conference, and I knew a little bit that I was like, he came from the Bucks, right? I knew that much. But man, I did not know him. I'm like, oh my gosh, you look like you are ill prepared, and you're going to run this team to the ground just by the press conference I'm seeing. And I'm not rooting for your team. In fact, I hope I beat you. I hope my team beats yours twice every year. But I'm like, come on, man. You know, And before we go, go ahead. Go ahead.
The only other thing that I wanted to end this with before we get into our usual, before we roll out, is Liam starts with. And it's going to be because of that letter is why you leave in 2025. Well, before the 2026 season.
Yeah, I think you might be correct. I think we probably will see him be on Black Monday, the day after Week 18 concludes, January of 2026. I agree. Oh my goodness. Ryan says Liam Cohen. Oh Lord. Duval. Yes. Sad. And Dante with a wonderful point. I think this is a great way to end talking about the Rooney Rule and the one and dones that we have seen that have become commonplace as of late. He says the NFL should start adding a fine against the salary cap when multiple coaches are under contract at a time, no more than one and dones or two and dones. Yeah, they just seem to. It seems to become more fashionable. They're like, okay, this is not the guy, and then just a year in or 2 years in, you're gone. Yeah, sad. You have anything else to add to the tribe before we head out, sir?
No, another great Monday edition of football, episode 75, man. Just a
That's
lot
awesome.
of episodes we have done now in the past
Yeah.
couple of years, absolutely crushing it out here in these streams between NFL, UFL, CFL. A lot of action that we have covered
Hmm.
throughout this tenure, man. 75 episodes. Been an honor, joy, and privilege. Looking forward to the later ones as well.
And the honor and the privilege have been mine to share this stage with you, sir. I agree, and I appreciate you. And speaking of which, if you want to find my brother and my cohort at this particular program, all you have to do is find him at the different social media homes he has. Sir Turbo _ media at Instagram, Sir Turbo _ media on X, underscore Sir Turbo on TikTok, and TikTok is still available at the moment, and at Sir Turbo Media under YouTube. And if
Good
you want
work.
to find if you want to find yours truly, all you do is go into flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That's flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. Well, that is it for us. Thank you so much. Thank you to the tribe. Dante, I pray that your Eagles do well. And hey, you might actually end up having your second trophy in 6 years. We shall see. But for my brother Drew, I am Cole. Here to say, I should say, thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for hitting the notification bell so you can catch everything that comes with the Soul Turbo Media YouTube channel and the Comey Media YouTube channel as well. We appreciate you and we love you. Now, for Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say, imparting as we always do. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And as always, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And as always, please stay safe out here in these streets. I bet Tay-Tay told Travis to sing that song after the AFC Championship.
Oh my gosh.
Do a little dance, make a little love. You're down and down.
See ya. Oh my God.